All right, it's 7:30. We are now in the regular meeting for the Stanton City Council, November 11th, 2021. And the first item, I would like to remind everyone that we still do have a mask mandate in place. So if you can please wear masks during the meeting. If you need one, there should be some. Are there any out front?
There should be at both entrances to City Hall, Mayor.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, the next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone would please stand, if you would care to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. The next item is the Invocation Moment of Silence, and it's Councilor Darby's turn.
Good evening. Today, November 11th, is Veterans Day, which honors those who served, and because of that, I have asked veteran Lieutenant Rod Burke of the Stanton Police Department to provide the invocation this evening. Lieutenant Burke began his law enforcement career with the Stanton Police Department in 1995 when he started volunteering as a reserve police officer. In December of 1997, he was hired as a police officer and has since been promoted to corporal, sergeant, and lieutenant. While working at the department, he has served in a number of different capacities, including bicycle officer, investigator, and a member of the critical incident response team. He is currently the shift commander on D Squad. In addition to his police service, Lieutenant Burke served in the Virginia Army National Guard between 1989 and 2009, retiring at the rank of Staff Sergeant. His military deployments included Operation Desert Storm in 1991, Operation Noble Eagle in 2003, Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2007 through 2008, and during that time, he received many military awards and recognitions. Thank you for your service, Lieutenant Burke. Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight, especially on Veterans Day. It holds a special note, obviously, with the service there. It's an honor. Thank you. With that, I'm Rod Burke. I work for Stanton PD. I'm obviously in this uniform this evening. However, we do carry American flag with us, and I'm one of those that carries a little piece of crossover from my military uniform inside my vest. With that, first of all, I'd like to start with a special thanks to all my brothers and sister veterans that are here and that are in our communities and our country. Veterans Day originally started as Armistice Day. It was to honor World War I veterans. It was later changed due to a mass mobilization during World War II to Veterans Day to honor all America's vets. On Veterans Day, we pause to remember the sacrifice of our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen, the sacrifices that they've made serving our nation where and when they were needed. Many have secured our freedoms with the ultimate sacrifice. What is a military vet, you might ask? Many of us left friends, family, and everything we knew. Most of us were teenagers, some in their 20s. We left for an unknown adventure. Didn't know when or if we'd ever see home again. We loved our country enough to defend it and protect it with our own lives. We were brothers and sisters, regardless of anything we brought to the table from our hometowns. Things like mail call, phone calls, those were super important to us when we were away. We also missed family events while we were gone. Some saw combat, some didn't. Many have seen and experienced things they can't describe or explain or wouldn't care to. They've dealt with victory and tragedy. They've celebrated, they've mourned, and they've lost people along the way. We also fought for our freedoms as well as everyone else's. My journey started with my first deployment was 32 years ago at this point. I left behind a freshly married wife. We had been married about a year, a little over a year and a half. So she ran the household while I was gone for the first one. That was in the Middle East. Returned home, back to work, Department of Corrections, and then switched over to the police department at that point. The next one, I was fully seated within the police department, a few changes there. I ended up with a stateside deployment to Fort Meade, Maryland. Again, leaving the wife and this time a 9-year-old at home to run a household together without me. After that was over, we again returned to the workforce, back to the police department with more changes, additional military schools, additional police department schools, and along came my third deployment in 2007. This time leaving a wife and a teenager at home that thought she would run the household versus the wife. On the last time, I even tried I didn't leave anything to the desert the first time, and I'm allergic to sand. Even though I was just kidding, I packed my things and went just as willing as the rest. With that, today, as we're here, there are about 1,000 Virginia and Kentucky National Guard soldiers that are currently training in Virginia to deploy to the African continent for the next 12 months for various missions. Part of that unit is tied to the 29th Infantry, which is our armory here in Stanton, has heavy ties to that back to World War I, and I was proud to be part of that unit for most of my career. With that, if you would like to join me in prayer, please bow your head. Heavenly Father, on this Veterans Day, we're thankful for all veterans. We ask for special blessings for our service members who paid the ultimate sacrifice. We also ask for blessings for all who have served and all who are currently serving, as well as their families that are so important to them to be able to do their missions. We also ask for your protection, guidance, and strength for those that are getting ready to deploy on our behalf. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Again, I thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening.
And thank you
Thank
for
you,
your
Rod.
service
Thank you.
on both accounts. All right, so the next item is the mayor's report, and we have a proclamation for Small Business Saturday. It's my understanding Greg Beam, the executive director of the SDDA. Where are you, Greg? There you are. All right. I'm going to read the proclamation and then I will present it to Mr. Beam. City of Stanton, Virginia Proclamation, Small Business Saturday, November 27th, 2021. Whereas the City of Stanton, Virginia celebrates our local small businesses and the contribution they make to our local economy and community. And whereas the citizens of the Stanton area support their local businesses and recognize that such local businesses create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our neighborhoods. And whereas the City of Stanton, Virginia supports local businesses by, among other incentives and activities, having a downtown service district and partnering with the Stanton Downtown Development Association. And whereas the City of Stanton, Virginia joins with other localities in Virginia and across the nation in recognizing the importance of local businesses. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by Stanton City Council that November 27th, 2021 is hereby designated as Small Business Saturday in the City of Stanton. The Stanton City Council urges the residents of our Stanton community in our region and communities across the country to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. Adopted this 11th day of November, 2021. Andrea W. Oakes, Mayor. All right. Mr. Beam. Thank you for everything.
Just briefly, I wanted to say thank you on behalf of our all of our local businesses here in our community. We appreciate the continued support from both government and city council, as well as our community members who continue to support our businesses all year, not just on one Saturday, but throughout the year. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
All right. So the next item is a proclamation for Veterans Day. I'm gonna put these on. City of Stanton, Virginia Proclamation, Veterans Day, November 11th, 2021. Whereas Veterans Day has its origins in the November 11th, 1918 armistice, which brought World War I to a conclusion. And whereas the Allied victory in World War I affirmed the strength of great nations acting together for high purposes. And whereas the people of the United States caused through their elected representatives the designation of November 11th as a federal legal holiday, which in 1954 became officially known thereafter as Veterans Day. And whereas Veterans Day continues to be celebrated and commemorated with solemn observance in honor of all Americans who have served their country in times of war and conflict. And whereas Veterans Day has become a significant part of our American heritage as we recognize millions of our citizens whose military service has had a profound effect on history. And whereas the courage, honor, sacrifice, and dedication which veterans of the United States Armed Forces have displayed in the cause of justice, freedom, and democracy are most worthy of recognition. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by Stanton City Council that November 11th, 2021 is hereby designated as Veterans Day in the city of Stanton. And Stanton City Council urges our community and communities across the country to observe the day with appropriate ceremonies in honor of those who have served. Adopted this 11th day of November 2021, Andrea W. Oakes, Mayor. Now, it's my understanding that retired Army Colonel Melissa Patrick of District 11 of Veterans of Foreign Wars and a master parachutist, having jumped out of 65 planes. Wow, that's quite incredible. But before I give you the fancy copy of the proclamation, I would like to ask any and all veterans in the room, if you can please raise your hand. If we can please honor our veterans. We sit up here today as a free country, being able to practice democracy because of all of you, the veterans. So thank you.
On behalf of the Stanton veterans, all veterans, I want to thank the mayor and the city council for this proclamation. And I want to thank you also for your support of veterans in this area. I think I speak for all veterans when I say that it has been an honor to serve this nation in the military forces. And so we appreciate the support that we get from this local community and from our elected representatives. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Colonel Patrick, and all of our veterans. We truly do honor each and every one of you. Okay, and for our veterans, if you'd like to stay, feel free. But if you would like to head home, feel free. Good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
God bless. All right, let's see. So the next item I have under the mayor's report. All right, this is very lighthearted. I am going to request the city council as well as staff and anyone that would care to join us at our next meeting on December 9th to wear an ugly holiday sweater. So Claffy, dig in that closet and find that sweater. Also, I'd like to mention the 4th annual City's Holiday Tree Lighting. This will be on November 29th at 5 o'clock at the Gypsy Hill Park. The tree is located right next to the Gypsy Hill Park pool. Please come join us because the lighting of this tree officially kicks off the holiday season in the city of Stanton. And our honoree this year is going to be Mrs. Thelma Newman.
Good.
After that, the SDDA will have their annual Christmas parade that will begin at 7 o'clock. So it's going to be a day filled with festivities. And all right, what else? Oh, trash pickup in the West End this Saturday at 10 a.m. If you would like to come and help pick up trash, this is being sponsored by the West End Alliance as well as the West End Business Association. Everybody's meeting in the parking lot across the street from the Valley Missions parking lot. You'll be able to see everyone because they're going to provide gloves, the plastic gloves and safety vest. So if you'd like to help pick up some trash in the West End, come on out this Saturday, 10 a.m. Let's see, what else here? Oh, I wanted to let everyone know that we are only having one meeting in November and one meeting in December because of the holidays. So just wanted to make everyone aware so you do not show up for the next meeting. And finally, I just want to simply wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. With that, are there any additional items by members of council? Nope.
Mayor Oakes,
Councilor Dole.
I did attend the virtual breakfast, which is kind of weird because it's virtual, but for the Blue Ridge Community College. And I didn't see any other local elected officials attending there, except, well, that one. Yeah, I forgot you were on there. So the good news I want to share about Blue Ridge Community College is they have such great programs now for those who want to improve their skills and get certifications. And there's actually funding available where you can go as such a reduced rate or free in some cases, depending on the type of certification you're going after. So it's an opportunity to up your skills, which means up your salary, which is the really important thing. So I just wanted to pass that along and enjoyed seeing everybody there at virtually.
Right, thank you. All right, any additional items? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of minutes for the work session and regular meeting of October 28th, 2021.
Mayor Oakes,
Councilor Darby.
I will be abstaining from this as I was not present at that time.
All righty. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Oakes,
Councilor Claffey.
we approve the minutes of the work session and regular meeting of October 28th, 2021 as presented.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Oakes,
Vice Mayor Robertson.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Wallace, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Robertson,
Aye.
Mayor Oakes,
Aye.
Mr. Holmes,
Aye.
Ms. Dole,
Aye.
Ms. Mead,
Aye.
Mr. Claffey,
Aye.
motion carries.
All right, thank you. All right, that takes us to the regular meeting, which is item A, a presentation of certificate of appreciation to Colton Lots, Stanton Fire and Rescue, and to recognize the efforts of the City of Stanton by Central Shenandoah Health District, Virginia Department of Health. Mr. Rosenberg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This item is on the agenda at the request of Dr. Laura Carnegie, the Health Director of the Central Shenandoah Health District, and I'm looking out in the audience for her there. Good evening, and please join us at the podium.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for
Welcome.
giving me a few minutes to speak with you. I just want to take this opportunity at this point in the year and a half of the COVID-19 pandemic to give our appreciation to all of our community partners who have been so integral in this response. In our district alone, we've investigated over 42,000 COVID cases. To date, we've given over 177,000 COVID-19 vaccines, and that's not something that could have been done unilaterally with just the local public health departments. We depended on our localities for support throughout this response, and we got robust response, particularly from our emergency management. And I recognize both the city of Stanton, but in particular Colton Lots for his hard work and dedication throughout this year and a half. So I'd like to present him with this certificate of appreciation from Central Shenandoah Health District. and thank you. Thank you for everything you've done.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
We're going to get a picture and then you can give a speech. Robert. Fire Chief Garber, do you want to come up and? Okay. Thank you. Colton, would you like to say a few words?
Sure, I'll say a few words. First off, for anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Colton Motts. I'm a master firefighter on A shift in operations and emergency manager, deputy emergency manager on my days off. So first off, I'd like to thank Department of Health. Dr. Carnegie, thank you for taking care of the administration side of things. But I'd like to give a special thanks to Hillary Cronin. She was our VDH liaison for operations. She was my right-hand person when it came to the COVID-19 pandemic, and we exchanged numerous emails, texts, phone calls at 3 o'clock in the morning, trying to figure things out and make it work for the next day. So I couldn't have done it without her. We were challenged with a lot of ups and downs, policies changing nightly, daily, and hourly, and we made it work, and I couldn't have done it without her. As far as on the city side, first off, I'd like to thank Chief Garber. He trusted me to take the lead on this, not knowing exactly what I was getting myself into. And however, but he did trust me and he supported us through this. He told me, he said, Colton, make it work. I don't care what the cost is. I don't care what the logistics are. You take it, you roll with it. We'll figure out the money. And that was before we had any government money on top of that. We had numerous amounts of overtime, staffing issues, logistics, and we made it work. And on the side note of that, Chief Weller, Chief Ball were in the operations side of me for me and absolutely rocked it out of the park. And then lastly, I appreciate the certificate. I don't believe that my name should be on it. I honestly believe that Stanton Fire and Rescue should be on it. Our men and women of our department took it from day one, rolled with it. We never dropped a call. We never dropped below minimum staffing. We answered every single call, not knowing what COVID-19 was as we do today. We took COVID-19 home with us. Most of our department contracted it. We took it to our families, our newborns, our immune compromised relatives, and we never missed a day of work. And when I say that, I mean, when we called out sick, we had people holding over to make sure the citizens were provided the best care that they could. I couldn't have done it without them. And then on top of that, when vaccines came out, we are 97% vaccinated for City of Stanton Fire and Rescue. We were one of the highest in the country as far as fire and rescue. And then we were tasked with providing vaccines. I will proudly say that over a quarter of our department became vaccinators, and that's full-time staff. On top of that, you had to be a advanced life support person. So that's a qualification that you had to be to become a vaccinator at the time. We provided hundreds and hundreds of vaccines to our community, or excuse me, to our government body, to our school teachers, to ourselves. And that was asked by voluntary only. It was not forced upon them. And they took it, they rolled with it, they did the training, and they never asked a question. So I will proudly hang this on the wall, but I will also get another one made that says City of Stanton Fire and Rescue, because from day one, we couldn't have done it without them. Our community couldn't have done it without them. So thank you.
Thank you. And you guys are the best.
Mayor Oakes, I had
Chancellor.
one question for Colton.
Yes, ma'am.
You said that I don't know how many you had that were had become vaccinators, but did you take an internal poll, like who gave the meanest jab?
So you can ask probably most of our staff and our school teachers and they probably get a consensus of that. But I couldn't tell you how many hundreds of vaccines that we gave. I couldn't tell you the number. I could probably get Dr. Carnegie or Hillary to pull the numbers of how many or who gave the most. But however, we all divided and conquered and made it happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to the next item.
Uh,
It's a proclamation. So Dr. Carnegie, if you could please stay in the room.
If you would like to come back to the podium, Dr. Carnegie, that would be helpful. Thank you.
I was going to surprise her, Steve. Welcome back, Dr. Carnegie. All right, City of Stanton, Virginia proclamation honoring Dr. Laura Carnegie. Whereas Laura Carnegie, MD, has served as the director of the Virginia Department Health Central Shenandoah Health District since 2015. And whereas Dr. Carnegie is a graduate of the University of Virginia School of Medicine and is board certified in internal medicine and holds a Master of Public Health degree, spent 25 years in private practice and academics, and is a veteran of the United States Navy in which she served as a physician. Thank you for your service. And whereas Dr. Carnegie has strived throughout her tenure to develop strong relationships and partnerships with local governments, school systems, healthcare systems, and other community organizations and agencies. And whereas Dr. Carnegie and the Central Shenandoah Health District staff have conducted planning, training, and exercises with regional partners such as vaccination point of dispensing, training, and pandemic influenza exercises. And whereas Dr. Carnegie, throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, has made herself consistently available for consultation on issues related to exposure, isolation, quarantine, vaccinations, surge, and many other issues related to the pandemic. And whereas Dr. Carnegie's leadership and direction throughout the COVID-19 pandemic has been exemplary and critical to addressing the many issues that the pandemic has presented. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed, Stanton City Council does hereby recognize Dr. Laura Carnegie for her years of service to the city of Stanton and the Central Shenandoah Health District, commends her for the care, dedication, and professionalism with which she has served the community and wishes her well on her upcoming retirement. Adopted this 11th day of November, 2021, Andrea W. Oakes, Mayor. Now, we not only have a fancy proclamation to give you, but we have a present. And just our way of simply saying thank you for the many hours that you spent with the city of Stanton trying to help us maneuver through this pandemic. So thank you so much and best wishes on your retirement.
Thank you so much.
Go Who's.
And I just have to kind of echo what Colton said, is that this is a team effort, and I have just a remarkable public health team who, deserve all the credit in the world. Again, thank you so much for all the support that the city of Stanton has given us during this public health effort, and thank you so much. This was a wonderful surprise. I really appreciate it.
Well, again, thank you. And maybe now you can get some rest because we know you've been putting in some long hours. So thank you so much, Dr. Carnegie.
Thank you.
Right. The next item, well, item B, C, and D are all public hearings. So I'm going to read a statement that our city attorney has drafted. Public hearing. In a moment, I will open up the public hearing. It is a time that council sets aside to hear from citizens and others about a specific topic. We ask that you please give your name, your address, and then keep your remarks at 5 minutes or less. When you reach the 5-minute time limit, I will let you know that your time limit has expired. For our Zoom participants, please raise your hand now if you wish to speak on this particular public hearing. If you raise your hand during this public hearing, you also will be able to raise your hand during the council meeting for other public hearings and matters from the public. And please keep your comments to 5 minutes as well. Once everyone who wishes to speak has had an opportunity, I will then close the public hearing. I will now open the public hearing, so if you wish to speak, please approach the podium and will alternate between individuals physically present and those that have their hand raised via the Zoom platform. Okay, so the first public hearing is item B, public hearing and consideration of a request by Aaron and Bithia, thank you, Reed, to vacate and abandon all of the remaining portion of a 15-foot wide alley extending from Arlington Street between lots 7 and 8 of the J.H. Ehrman and S.N. Bagsby lots. And we have it listed in parentheses as subdivision. Mr. Rosenberg.
Madam Mayor, the city's senior planner, Rodney Rhodes, will present this item as well as items C and D.
Welcome, Mr. Rhodes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Reed's own property located at 35 Arlington Street. It consists of lot 7, lot 8, and tract 1 as shown on this map. I'm sure council will recall this property because last month a variance to the subdivision standards was approved by city council in order for the Reeds to combine lot 8 here with the large tract in the back, which leaves the small tract 7. They are here before you today requesting that this 15-foot wide alley, it's about 187 feet long, be vacated. Staff has reviewed this request and has not identified any issues. I would go a step further that at least the Director of Public Works and myself are in full agreement that we would like to see alleys that have no public purpose be vacated so that someone owns them. Plan Commission, and as you can see, the applicants own property on all 3 sides. It does not impact anyone else. It does not connect with another street. It does not connect with another subdivision. So staff is fully supportive of this alley vacation. Plan Commission conducted a public hearing on October 21. No one spoke in opposition to the request. And on a 5-0 vote, the commission voted to recommend approval of the proposed alley vacation. I'd be glad to take any questions you have now or after you conduct a public hearing. I believe the Reeds are participating on the Zoom platform.
All right. At this time, would Aaron or Bithia Reed like to address the council?
Yes, good evening, Mayor Oakes and Vice Mayor Robertson and City Council members. I'm Bithia Reed. My husband Aaron and I own the 2 lots at 35 Arlington Street. And as Mr. Rhodes said, we're tonight before you with a request to vacate the undeveloped portion of the alleyway between our 2 lots. We just thank you ahead for your consideration, and we look forward to joining you in Stanton in the community summer of 2022, next summer. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, at this time, I will bang the gavel that will open up the public hearing. And as stated, if you can please come to the podium, state your name, your address, and you have 5 minutes to speak. You can come whether you're for or against. We're not going to divide it up. It's all under one public hearing. And after everyone has had a chance to speak, I'll bang the gavel and that will close the public hearing out. We'll start with the audience first, and then we'll go to Zoom, whether or not anyone has their hand raised. So we'll alternate. With that, the public hearing is now open. Would anyone like to address the council? Ms. Wallace, do we have anyone with their hands raised? Or should I be looking over here? All right, do we have it? No? Okay, all right, no one.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I would like to say that
Oh.
I know this tract very well since I grew up on it, and I have some ancient fortifications that I built when I was 8 or 9 years old in tract 1.
Lord.
And I welcome our new neighbors, the Reeds, to come down there and find some of my artifacts from my 1960 archaeological. But I walked through that property many a time on the way to elementary school, and you never knew an alleyway was there. So I'm very glad to see it being developed. This is a wonderful thing. Welcome to the Reeds.
All right, all right. Well, now you've been challenged to find a treasure hunt. So, all right, anyone else? All right, with that, Councilor Mead.
Thank you. I was just wondering what your future intentions are with tract 1 with this alley vacation?
Yes, Councilor Mead. This is Miss Reed. I'll take that.
Thank you.
We're working with architect Michael Brown on a single family home that will sit, hopefully kind of disappear back into the existing mature trees in track 1. And our request for vacating this alleyway is in large part because there are some particular mature trees right along where that runs that we would like to miss with our driveway. We'd like to have some flexibility to preserve those. So that's our thought process here. I hope that answers your question.
All right. Anyone from the audience? Hearing none. That closes out the public hearing. At this time, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Oakes,
Councilor Darby.
I move that council adopt the ordinance and approve the alley vacation as recommended by the planning commission.
Right, so we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Councilor
Madam Mayor,
Clappy.
I'd like to second that.
All right, we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Wallace, please call the roll.
Ms. Mead,
Aye.
Mr. Claffey,
Aye.
Ms. Dole,
Aye.
Mr. Holmes,
Aye.
Mayor Oakes,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Robertson,
Aye.
Ms. Darby,
Aye.
motion carries.
All right, thank you. And thank you, Ms. Reed. All right, the next item is item C, public hearing and consideration of a request by Kelly Granteer to amend chapter 18.120 yard building setback and open space exceptions, subsection 18.120.0104C of Title 18 zoning of the Stanton City Code. Mr. Rosenberg.
I'll turn this over to Mr. Rhodes.
Thank you once again. Kelly Granteer originally had a request to allow for existing lots to be subdivided into small lots, which are more narrow or smaller in size than the minimum requirements of the zoning code. These small lots would have been permitted in cases where the creation of the lot fits in with existing development pattern of the street. However, what's before you today has been changed drastically from that original request. It's been narrowed down significantly. Staff, and I would say myself, had some concerns with the impacts this could have had on the city as a whole. I could not determine how many lots could be further subdivided if this amendment went through as originally proposed. It could have been in the hundreds. And I wanted to make sure that this was the exception to the rule and the exception didn't become the new rule. So Ms. Granteer worked with staff to come up with a scaled down version of this that would limit this division if it met certain criteria and also had multiple single family homes on it. And that would suit her purpose for some property that she owns. And I would note that the Stanton Comprehensive Plan encourages home ownership, and the proposed amendment could permit a few existing rental dwellings to be converted to owner occupied as they would be on separate lots. I would note that the proposed amendment would be limited to situations where more than one single family dwelling exists on one lot, allow small lots to be created in situations where the new lot would meet the minimum size and width of at least 50% of the lots that exist on the same block, and it would prohibit the creation of lots less than 40 feet wide and 70 feet deep. At the October 21 Planning Commission, the commission conducted a public hearing and considered the request. No one spoke in opposition to the request. And afterwards, the commission voted 5-0 to recommend approval of the proposed code with one significant addition. It would limit the properties in the H1 Historic Preservation District where there is additional oversight. So only properties in the H1 Historic District and only properties that have existing multiple dwellings on it and meet these other requirements could apply for this further division of the property. I'd be glad to take any questions you have now or after you conduct the public hearing.
Are there any questions for Mr. Rhodes?
Yeah, this is Brenda Mead. Mr. Rhodes, is it the feeling of the Planning Commission and is it staff's feeling that this would would enhance affordable housing, workforce housing in Stanton?
That wasn't something that was discussed by staff or the planning commission. However, when you have multiple homes on a lot, they either become mother-in-law type suites or they become rental units. So this certainly would allow the potential for the lots to be sold separate from, each house to be sold separate. So I don't know if that would be affordable housing or not, but it certainly would be more opportunities for owner occupied housing.
Thank you.
Right. Are there any additional questions? Right. Is Kelly Granteer, is she,
Yes, she is in attendance.
would you like to address the council or say anything to the council? It's up to you. You do not have to. Okay. All right. Okay, just like before, I'm going to bang the gavel, and I'll start with the audience. If you want to come to the podium to speak for or against this, and then from there we will go to Zoom. If anyone has their hand raised, we will listen to what they have to say, and we'll go back and forth until no one has anything else to say concerning this matter. With that, the public hearing is now open. Welcome.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. My name is Daniel Hansen. I'm with Balzer and Associates, and we are working with Mr. Granteer on this project. Just wanted to thank you for your time tonight with looking at this. Just wanted to kind of reiterate what Mr. Rhodes was saying. The goal of what we're trying to do here is to get better in line with good zoning practices. Means that's, you're making like lots in like situations. The fact this goes with the historical areas, typically you're on smaller lots, narrower lots. The current zoning would have only allowed us to have like 100-foot wide lot in a place where you have 40-foot wide lots. So just trying to sort of go with the neighborhoods, and that's sort of why we developed this, to say you have to be in compliance with the neighborhood and its typical things. I think there's several other exceptions within the zoning code that sort of allow for a narrow lot or a closer front setback, if that's in keeping with the neighborhood characteristics. So I think this it's sort of in line with those exceptions. So that's kind of the thought process of why we're trying to look into this. And again, to sort of reiterate the two houses on one parcel situation, can't say it's impossible, but it's very difficult to sell those individually. As far as, so you're talking about home ownership, rental ownership, that kind of thing. So this would allow to get more home ownership in the city, which again seems to be a good thing. So if you have any questions, I'll certainly entertain any. If you want if you need some help with that, or if not, I'll sit down and stop.
Okay, all right. Thank you. All right, do we have anyone on Zoom? All right, would anyone else from the audience like to speak? With that, I will close the hearing and I'll entertain a motion. Councilor Holmes.
I move that council adopt the ordinance and approve the code amendment as recommended by the Planning Commission.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Madam Mayor,
Vice Mayor Robertson.
I'll second that.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Wallace, please call the roll.
Mr. Claffey,
Aye.
Ms. Dole,
Aye.
Ms. Darby,
Aye.
Mayor Oakes,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Robertson,
Aye.
Ms. Mead,
Aye.
Mr. Holmes,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Grantier. All right, the next item is item D, another public hearing. In consideration of a request by Stanton, Augusta YMCA for a special use permit for 575 New Hope Road under the provisions in subsection 18.20.0309, uses permit on review of chapter 18.20 R1 Low Density Residential District of Title 18 zoning of the Stanton City Code. Mr. Rosenberg.
Mr. Rhodes again.
Well, welcome back.
Got paperwork
I
this
know.
time.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council members. The Stanton Augusta YMCA is requesting a special use permit to use property located at 575 New Hope Road for a summer day camp and outdoor recreation. The property consists of approximately 35 acres and is zoned R1 low-density residential district. And this type of use is permitted in the R1 zoning with a special use permit. Development of this facility will likely occur in two phases. The first phase would be the construction of the outdoor recreation facilities. I assume that's the ball fields and parking so that the YMCA can offer summer camp in 2022. The second phase would include the construction of the buildings. In evaluating the application, staff looked at a number of factors: the impact of the recreational use on the surrounding properties, traffic impacts on New Hope Road, the existence of floodplain and the development potential of the property, and the comprehensive plan. Surrounding properties include a mixture of uses, including agricultural, industrial, religious, and single-family residential on large lots. Although a recreational facility of this size will impact the area, due to the seasonal and daytime-only use of the facility, these impacts should be limited. So this map shows the various uses around the property. As you can see, there's a couple businesses, industrial. There's a church directly across the street. This is next to the old sewage treatment plant. And I believe just off to the edge of this property is some fields used by another school.
John Lewis.
If I can move on to the next slide, which shows the conceptual layout of this property. The applicant has proposed 54 parking spaces. Staff has considered the proposed parking plan adequate for the intended use. I will not, they show the calculations and they have been included in your briefing. I will not go into those details, but they're similar to what is required for a daycare. So staff considered that adequate. We have people dropping off children at approximately the same time and then picking them up also. I believe the Y also intends to bus some of the participants to the site. Staff requested that the applicant conduct a turn lane warrant analysis to determine if a turn lanes need to be constructed on New Hope Road. Timmons Group conducted analysis, and based on its determination, turn lanes are not necessary. The city engineer reviewed that work and concurs with that conclusion. In your packet, there's a floodplain map. I'm guessing over half of this property is in the floodplain. So that greatly hinders the development of the land, and the use of the area for recreational purposes is highly compatible use in the floodplain. I've noticed in many jurisdictions, you'll see ball fields in the floodplain.
Right.
The City of Stanton, Virginia Comprehensive Plan 2018 to 2040 future land use map designates this area as conservation, recreation, open space. Obviously, the requested special use is consistent with this designation. Furthermore, the proposal is supported by several recreational objectives of the comprehensive plan. One, provide appropriate facilities and programs to adequately meet the recreational needs of the community. Two, continue to support and provide facilities for active and passive recreational uses that provide opportunities for social interaction. Three, work with the local YMCA and similar organizations to provide joint programs and to supplement resources. And four, continue to support the network of parks, both small and large. The Plan Commission conducted a public hearing on October 21. No one spoke in opposition to the request, and the commission voted on a 5-0 vote to approve the 54 parking spaces and recommend approval of the special use permit with the conditions as outlined in your briefing. Now I get to what I just dropped off. I will not go through all those conditions. However, the city attorney, John Blair, has suggested a change to condition number 2. It has been highlighted on that page. Condition number 2 states, a site distance analysis will be required. The relatively short distance to the curve in New Hope Road may require a different location for the entrance to the site than what has been shown on the conceptual plan, depending on the site distance determination. The additional language starts now. If the site distance analysis, in the opinion of the city engineer, requires a different location for the entrance, the landowner shall work with the city engineer to relocate the entrance from the location depicted on the concept plan. This basically, I think, is trying to say the city does not dictate where the entrance will go. If the site analysis indicates that's a bad location, then the applicant landowner would suggest another location. So the city's not going to tell them where to put the entrance. We just based on the site analysis, we can say where it can't go. I'd be glad to answer any questions you have at this time or after you conduct the public hearing.
Are there any questions?
Mr. Rhodes, I have a question. This is Brenda Mead.
Go ahead, Councilor Mead.
So this this is all in the Lewis Creek floodplain?
Yes.
Well, half the property's in the floodplain now, I'm guessing. Yes, it is Lewis Creek.
Okay. And so in the diagram you've presented that's in front of me right now, there's a yellow line that goes through are they proposing that to be public access trails or something? Or is that a driveway that goes through the property?
I believe that is a trail going, that circular oblong. I believe that is a trail.
Okay, and is it anticipated that this will be accessible to members of the public?
I think that'd be a question better answered by the applicants.
Okay.
Would the applicants from the Y like to say a few words? And maybe you could address Councilor Mead's question.
Good evening, Council. My name is Jason Lackey. I'm a board member with the Stanton Augusta YMCA. I'm also a former landscape architect. I'm the lead designer on this project, so I can answer those questions. The yellow line is merely a path for campers and YMCA members to use to exercise. It's not public access, not intended to be public access, but I don't see any way of securing that down. So the design intent is for YMCA members alone to be able to use it.
Did you, Vice Mayor Robertson?
Jason,
Sure.
Just want to make sure, I mean, I understand the concept of it being in the floodplain
Yes.
and, you know, tennis courts, that kind of stuff is fine, but that lodge and that indoor recreational area, I mean, if y'all are going to take precautions to elevate it, or I mean, what for?
The buildings would not under any circumstance be located in the floodplain. So I don't know if you've ever tried to insure something in a floodplain. It is financially prohibitive.
All right.
So that's a driving factor. I can also speak to the concern of the site distance triangle as a part of the design process. And that's something that you have to demonstrate on the plan. And it's not a matter of opinion. It's just a matter of fact. You can either see that distance or you cannot. And if you can't see that distance, your plan doesn't get approved. So that's kind of a redundancy that we're even talking about that on as a condition of this. It's part of the plan. It's not something we could avoid anyway.
There any other questions, or would you like to say any additional words to the council?
I don't know that I have any other words. I'm more than happy to take any other questions. We have here also Josh Cole, the executive director of the Stanton Augusta YMCA.
Josh, did you want to?
Wait, this is Brenda Mead. I have a question. Any pickleball courts? Anticipated?
Would that sway your vote?
Josh, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Mayor Oakes. Josh Cole, Executive Director of the Stanton Augusta YMCA, also a resident. To Mr. Robertson's point, 13 acres of this is outside of that floodplain, and that's what you're seeing. That's where those buildings are. So we're thrilled to have this project before you, and we hope we can go forward. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, just like before, I'm going to bang the gavel. I will start with the audience first, and then we'll go to the participants on Zoom. And once I know that everyone has had a chance to speak, I will close out the public hearing, and you can speak either for or against it. With that, the public hearing is now open. Would anyone care to speak for or against this? Welcome.
Hi again. Maggie Reagan, 893 Preston Drive, and I'm also a member of the Board of Trustees for the Y. And as an aside, I'd like to thank you all for stacking up the 3 organizations I'm involved with in the same meeting. That was very efficient for me tonight.
Just for you, Maggie.
Maggie.
I'm sorry?
It's a Maggie.
Yes, right. I'd just like to say that I really appreciate your unanimous support for this project. I'm sure that all of you know that Josh Cole and his staff at the Y do an incredible job for our city. And I have wholeheartedly supported that organization for many years. But my Y journey began 56 years ago when my father passed away when I was a child, and left my mom a widow with 3 kids, no job, and a mortgage. And so the Y became her sanity, I think, and our salvation. Why we went to Y Day Camp every day, every summer for the next 7 years. So that's why I still to this day support the Y, and I hope you will too. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, do we have any hands raised? No. All right, anyone else from the audience? Hearing none. That closes out the public hearing, and I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Oakes,
Councillor Dole.
I move the council approve the special use permit with the conditions as follows. 1, all structures or uses within the floodplain must comply with the floodplain regulations set forth in SCC Title 18.170. 2, a site distance analysis will be required. The relatively short distance to the curve in New Hope Road may require a different location for the entrance to the site than what has been shown on the conceptual plan, depending upon the site distance determination. If the site distance analysis, in the opinion of the city engineer, requires a different location for the entrance, the landowner shall work with the city engineer to relocate the entrance from the location depicted on the concept plan. 3, the 54 parking spaces determined to accommodate the use of the site should be provided on site, and all arrival and departure activities for campers shall also be done on site. 4, a site plan will be required prior to construction. If construction is phased, a separate site plan may be necessary for each phase. 5, the athletic fields shall not have stadium-style illumination.
All right, we have a motion on the floor that was obviously written by an attorney. I'll entertain a second.
Mayor Oakes,
Councillor Holmes.
I second that.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Wallace, please call the roll.
Ms. Dole,
Aye.
Ms. Darby,
Aye.
Mayor Oakes,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Robertson,
Aye.
Ms. Mead,
Aye.
Mr. Holmes,
Aye.
Mr. Clappy,
Aye.
motion carries.
All right, thank you. And thank you for joining us. All right, item E is not a public hearing. It's a presentation of quarterly financial report. Mr. Rosenberg.
Madam Mayor, Chief Finance Officer Phil Traer will present this item.
Welcome, Mr. Traer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's a pleasure to be here. Tonight, we're here to report the first quarter unaudited postings of revenues and expenditures for FY 2022. Year-to-date revenues posted through September 30th, 2021 total $7,896,000 or 11.5% of the annual appropriation. In FY 2021 through the first quarter, posted revenues were $7,893,000 or 14% of the annual appropriation. We are 25% through the fiscal year and 11.5% is close to normal. FY 2021 was skewed somewhat with reduced budgetary revenues due to the COVID-19 shutdowns, and FY 22's budgetary base was increased by over $6 million because of ARPA appropriations. Overall, year-on-year revenues are remarkably close with a variance of just $3,400. Sales tax is up $90,000 over the same time last year. Meals tax, $335,000, and lodging revenue is up $143,000. All in all, we are pacing at roughly $700,000 to $750,000 above forecasted budgeted revenues. On the expense side, we have posted $9,837,000 or 14.4% of the annual appropriation. From a percentage basis, this is a little light. Again, the percentage is being skewed downwards by 1.5 points with the appropriation of the ARPA funds of over $6 million. FY 2021's expenditures at the end of the first quarter were $9.7 million or 17.3% of the appropriation, and FY 20 was 9.8 or 16.34. Year-on-year expense variances is up $94,000. Government admin posted an additional $42,000 that was spread out through multiple departments. Judicial admin was up $113,000. This was driven by salaries and related benefits with the Sheriff and Commonwealth Attorney Office. Public safety posted an additional $114,000. This variance was driven by the police department and jail expenditures and were partially offset by savings in the fire department and the timing of the juvenile detention invoice. Public Works up $185,000, primarily driven by the Berkeley Place wall repair. Parks and Recreation up $150,000. Salaries and related again in Parks and Recreation and Library of these two departments have opened up for normal operations, and we're operating on a limited basis in FY 2021. In the area of planning and community development, we have a decrease of $473,000 compared to last year's same time, which was entirely driven by the CARES Act funding of $500,000 for support of local businesses, which was recorded in the first quarter of FY 2021. Finally, golf. First quarter golf revenues in FY 22 finished at $67,061 compared to FY 21 $68,293. We had 4,081 rounds of golf posted in 22 compared to 3,963 in 21. Membership count equals 39, with 11 of those members associated with the Riverhead High School golf team. In FY 21, we had 20 members reported, including 8 members for the Riverhead High School golf team. As a note, as of November 1st, there were 71 members, which included 16 partial members who purchased their original membership in FY 2021 and are prorated in FY 2022. On the expense side, we finished with $22,299 in operating expense compared to $26,089 in 21. Fertilizers and chemical expenses in 21 account for this variance. Maintenance allocations used for both years will remain identical until we receive our FY 21 allocation report. At that time, we will use the most recent allocation dollars for the remaining of FY 2022's reporting. And finally, we had a net loss in FY 2022 of $32,302 versus $35,063 in 21. We'll be happy to field questions at this time.
Right. Are there any questions? Okay, all righty. I don't have any questions for Mr. Traeger.
Probably saving up for the next one.
No. All right, so that takes us on to the next one, which is item F, a discussion of FY 2021 end of year general fund financial overview and fund analysis. Mr. Rosenberg.
Madam Mayor, Mr. Chair will present this item as well.
All right.
Madam Mayor, members of council, it's a pleasure to be back.
Yes, welcome back.
Thank you. Tonight, we have the FY 2021 fund balance analysis for your review. The FY 2021 audit report will be presented to council at your next meeting. After the audit report has been delivered, we will introduce FY 2022's budget amendment number 3 which will incorporate fund balance recommendations that you will see tonight, along with any council modifications. Any modifications that you come up with in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we will happy to incorporate this and alter the recommendations. And those recommendations will be included in December's budget adjustment, budget amendment. FY 2021 was an unusual year as the city manager's recommended budget was fully prepared, budget books printed, and within a week of the presentation, the governor declared a state of emergency and shut down all non-essential businesses. Our budget was immediately revised and major funding sources of sales, meals, license tax were reduced by 25% in anticipation of an extended shutdown period. Lodging tax was reduced 20% and delinquency factors were applied against previous year's budgeted real estate and personal property taxes. All in all, with no trend data available, the city's reductions were closely aligned with projections provided by Jim Regibald. On the expense side, furloughs were implemented, open positions were frozen, capital expenditures were eliminated, as were all unnecessary expenditures. Obviously, what we could not have anticipated at that time was the amount of money that was about to be pumped into our nation's economy via the CARES Act. With this background, we will walk through the posted revenues and expenditures in FY 2021. On slide 3, our FY 2021 budgeted local tax revenues equaled $38,325,000 versus FY 21's actuals of $45,157 for an overall positive variance of $6.8 million. Real estate outperformed revised budget projections by $2.2 million. Personal property tax outperformed revised budget projections by $917,000. Locals tax outperformed budget by $1.6 million. Business license outperformed budget by $969,000, and meals tax outperformed budget by $1.2 million. Lodging tax fell short by $122,000, as did communications tax of $181,000. I can assure you, you will not see the same type of positive variances in FY 2022.
Mr. Trayer, this is Brenda Mead.
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned Jim Regibald. For the members of the community who don't know who he is, could you clarify that?
He is considered the source in local government forecasting within the state of Virginia. He's been doing this, I think, for 35 years, maybe more. And when Jim makes projections, I can assure you all 133 localities in Virginia pay attention.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Ms. Mead. On slide 4, we have other revenues which finished $291,000 below budget. Breakdown includes fines, interest, and miscellaneous down $96,000. This was primarily due to court closures and lower interest rates. License and permits were down $5,400, recovered costs down $24,000, and charges for services were down $165,000, with Parks and Recreation and court closings driving this variance. On slide 5, we have our state and federal revenue breakouts. Shared expenditures, which are basically overhead allocations to other funds, are down slightly by $12,000. We have law enforcement, HB 599, up slightly due to an increase from the state of $32,000. As you recall, this $32,000 was part of the FY 2021 budget amendment, which appropriated these funds to partially address compression issues within the police salary scales. Street maintenance up $84,000 as our state reimbursement exceeded budget estimates. Social Services and Children's Services Act are largely based upon reimbursement of actual expenditures incurred in this area, and these two areas were down roughly $294,000 to the budget. Other state and federal revenues show a negative variance of $88,000. This variance is made up of a variety of accounts, but primarily within the state category. On slide 6, we have a total budget revenue, which a summary of the total budget revenue, which equals $66,536,000. Our actual revenues equal $66,880,000 for a positive variance of $343,000, or 100.52% of the budget of revenues being recorded in 21. Again, we have the positive variance of local revenues of $6.5 million. The negative variance is state and federal 181. We have a negative variance of fund balance appropriation of $6 million, as this as these funds had previously been recorded in prior fiscal years and were not received in FY 2021. So the real story in this slide truly is the $6.5 million over budget in local revenues. Slide 7 begins our FY 2021 expense review. The overall revised FY 2021 budget expenses equal $66,536,000 versus $62,158,000, and encumbrances, actuals of $62,158,000, and encumbrances of $1,050,000 for a positive variance of $3,185,000, or 95% of the revised budget being spent. Significant savings were posted throughout the general fund as frozen positions, spending freezes were implemented for much of the year prior to being lifted as the economy began to open up. Positive variances can be found in the general government function where savings in finance, technology, and risk management drove the majority of the $457,000 variance. Judicial admin equals $114,000, primarily as a result of savings and expense freezes in the Sheriff's Department, victim witness, and open positions within the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. Public safety savings totaled $655,000, driven by staffing vacancies in police and 911 department, as well as unspent asset forfeiture carryovers and spending freezes. Public works savings, $584, were driven by staff vacancies, savings in paving, street maintenance, and traffic engineering. Health and welfare savings, $506, primarily driven by Children's Services Act, and Parks and Recreation savings, $646, driven by a shutdown of adult and children's program, as well as pool closures. Community development savings equal $204,000. $100,000 of this was a carryover of the district layover project that's been reappropriated this year and it's in the works. We have tourism of $30,000 and the Stanton Welcome Center of $27,000. On slide 8 provides a little more clarity the net savings of FY 2021. As you can see, we start with a positive variance of $4,377,000. We reduce by encumbrances of $1,050,000 in mandated carryovers, which are grants and donations of $230,000. After these reductions have been considered, we have a net savings of $3,096,000, or 4.65% of the revised budget. Keep in mind a combination of frozen positions, spending freezes, and shuttered departmental programs help to drive this variance. Slide 9 breaks out our reserves of $12,947,000. We start with the $9.6 million for the safety net reserve of 15.5% of our FY 2022 general fund budget. Next, we have employee leave of $1.7 million, encumbrances of $1,050,000, restricted donations and grants $231,000. We have operating reserves of $250,000 and prepaid in advances of $104,000. So that makes up our reserves. On slide 10, reviews the fund balance. We start with beginning balance on July 1st, 2020 was $17,565,000. We add our revenues of $66,880,000, less our expenditures, $62,158,000. We have a net balance as of June 30th, 2021 of $17,286,000. Next, we reduce our reserves that we mentioned above, plus $100,000 for the district layover carryover, which was appropriated with budget amendment number 2 earlier this year. We get an unassigned fund balance of $9,239,000. Slide 11 provides a history of our safety net reserves. Since 1989, the city has increased its safety net reserve from 5% to 15.5% after FY 2019, and that's where it remains today. The safety net goal has been 18% of the subsequent year's budget, and reserves currently of 9.5 does equal 15.5% of FY 2022's general fund budget of $61,753,000. Slide 12 is a particular interest. Again, these are recommendations. These can be changed with suggestions in the coming days and weeks as necessary. Slide 12 provides a summary of our recommendations to the use of the fund breakdown. Again, if council approves, we will incorporate these items into our next budget amendment, which is scheduled for next month. We'll start with $2.5 million for the school warehouse Middle School CTE project, which was scheduled for FY '23 and '24 and was to be funded via debt service. This provision, coupled with the school's carryover, should put the schools in a position to move forward with all the scheduled projects as they appear in the FY 2021 to 2025 CIP. Our intent here would be to actually fund this and the cities house it on the city CIP fund where it will remain as a reserve. And then as time goes by and the schools have a plan, rock solid plan, they can come back before council, and at that time, council could approve an appropriation transfer from the city CIP to the school CIP. Next item, we have $1,670,000 provisions for the FY 2023 CIP as it appears within our current approved plan, not the one that you're about to see, but the one that we're currently operating with. We have $500,000 for the Middle River Regional Jail construction reserves, $135,000 for the police department HVAC, $350,000 for the technology department relocation, $125,000 for the Stanton bike and pedestrian plan, $100,000 for the Greenways project, $160,000 for call handling equipment, $150,000 for ineligible street reserves. This is actually an FY '22 item in the CIP, and $150,000 for adaptive control reserves. This too is an FY '22 item. That makes up to $1,670,000. We have $1.6 million to the emergency radio project. As referenced at the last meeting, this project received $400,000 appropriation from last year's carryover for design and was scheduled to receive $3.6 million in debt funding. The design work is nearly complete, and we are within days of being able to place an RFP out for solicitation. At the last meeting, we asked council to consider funding the remainder of the project with a combination of carryover 1.6, as you see here, and ARPA funding of $2 million. This will eliminate the issue of debt service for a project on the current approved CIP and creates capacity for other projects such as police and fire facilities. Again, with a limited number of vendors capable of delivering such a project, and given the length of time for the design process of emergency radio system, being in a position to issue an RFP within days should put us in a position to complete this project in a timely fashion. Next, we have $1.3 million for project cash flow contingency. Basically, this replenishes what we budgeted for in FY 2022. We are requesting $617,000 to increase our safety net reserves. This will bring us very close to GFOA's recommended safety net guidelines, which calls for localities to maintain 2 months of operating expenses and cash reserves. Per policy, these reserves could only be used in case of emergency and are not to be used to offset economic downturns, which are to be handled by reducing expenditures. We have $375,000 in operating contingency. This too will cover FY 2022 budget shortfalls. We have $331,000 for police patrol car replacements, which were cut from the FY 2022 budget, as well as an additional animal control vehicle, which is a recent request. Cars being replaced have in excess of $150,000. The animal control vehicle is 10 years old and has nearly 150,000 miles. Next, we have $275,000 to cover increasing economic development agreement costs. As businesses which are linked to the economic development agreements continue to mature, they're driving a greater percentage of our meal sales and lodging tax, and this equates to a higher share of cost per the agreement. FY '21 saw a significant spike in these costs as they increased by nearly 56% over the prior year. This additional $275 will show up in FY 2023's budget as well. Next, we have $200,000 for the final repairs associated with the floods of 2020. In this case, we will be repairing duck pond concrete walls damaged by the floods. Next item, $175,000 for public works vehicle replacement. This will replace a 21-year-old carpenter truck, a 21-year-old electrical truck, and a 15-year-old sign truck. Next item, $125,000 to the juvenile detention home to cover anticipated loss of federal revenues during the second half of the fiscal year. This expense too will show up in FY '23's budget as well. We have $45,000 to the relocation costs associated with the traffic sign shop. This new location will provide a cleaner, safer, and a more accessible work area for our employees. And finally, we have $25,000 for cybersecurity software to further strengthen the security of our network and network devices. And this item too will show up in '23's budget. Slide 13 provides a comparison of a 16.5% safety net reserve compared to GFOA's recommended 2-month reserve, which equates to 16.67%. And the goal recommended by our financial advisors of 18%. As can be seen, 16.5% safety net reserve has us just under the recommended 2-month reserve with a percentage basis of 17 basis points, which equates to $103,000. An 18% reserve would equal $11,115,000. And that would bring us up an additional $900,000. So with that, I will be happy to field your questions.
Right. Are there any questions for Mr. Trayer?
Bill, with the 18% reserve are there any other localities in the area that are operating at that?
I don't have an answer for that, but I can look that up.
That seems like a lot.
Well, it was recommended by Davenport
Keep the rates low.
for bond issuances. Yeah. That was the whole idea behind that.
It used to be 15% and then they raised it to 18%, probably what, 5 years ago or?
I'm
3
not
years
sure the
ago.
time frame, but
Yeah.
I trust your memory on that. Yeah.
So 18%, this is Brenda Mead, so 18% would ensure that we are borrowing at the lowest possible interest rates if we need to.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any additional questions? All right. Well, Mr. Traeger, thank you for making that as exciting as you possibly could. And I think we might have to wake a few members of the audience
have
up.
one other-
Oh,
I have one other
we do have
question.
another question.
On the 2.5 mil for the potential school warehouse CTE project,
Yes.
would we want to put that in CIP in a more general framework rather than saying that's what it's for? Because what if it turns out they need 1.5 million or we need something desperately?
I can park that in an undesignated CIP line item. Yes, ma'am, I could.
It'd be the same thing, just
Yes.
not as restrictive.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay. I can do that. If that's what council prefers. So.
Councilor Clappy.
Looking back on, I think it was page 3 where you get the general fund revenues.
Okay.
There was a $181,000 shortage in the communication tax. And that looked out of line with all the rest of the numbers. And I was just wondering, what was the explanation?
That seems to be going down more and more. Maggie can probably explain this a little bit better than I, so I will cede the microphone to Maggie.
I really can't give you a good explanation of why, but it is decreasing by about really close to $10,000 a month over the past couple of years. So it just continues to reduce and reduce. And I don't know if it's because of, a complete shift away from landlines because there are different taxes for landlines than there are for self-service. But that probably has something to do with the going away from landlines and cables and all those other things into more of a Wi-Fi based.
Got you. That
Yep,
makes
that
sense.
makes sense.
All right, thank you.
Mayor Oaks, I had a comment on that. Don't those funds go through the state first? So the theory with that money is it's magical, mystical. That's what happens.
Good way of putting it.
All right. Any additional?
I'm sorry, I will just say that, yes, it does all go through the state. That is something that's part of what's reported to my office. And so I do audit it. So we're we're getting, but it is, they do take a hefty fee for administering it. And then it is You know, it's divided up based on, you know, locality size, et cetera, but we do look after it.
And that wasn't our choice.
Correct.
To have it run through the state.
Right. That was General Assembly 2003, I believe.
Ms. Reagan, this is Brenda Mead. Or Mr. Traer, either one of you. So I had a question earlier about what the impact of eliminating sales tax on grocery sales would be to the city of Stanton on an annual basis. And I'm told that number's hard to get, unavailable. So I'm wondering if you can provide more information on that.
Sure, Ms. Mead. So the situation is that for the businesses, well, first of all, we can identify that there are multiple businesses in the city who provide groceries for sale. What we generally think of as the main grocery stores that we have in town, in addition to the large superstore type. We also have some smaller outlets, and then of course there are grocery items sold in a lot of convenience stores as well. I gave you my best estimate based on the data that I do have access to, but boiling down to the amount of actual meal or grocery tax paid per business is not available. It's available by company statewide, but then I can't drill down into those tax returns on an individual business basis. The best that I could do for you and the estimate that I gave you was to come up with a percentage. Just as an example, if you go into a grocery store and you buy food, that's grocery tax. But if you buy, you know, toilet paper or shampoo or whatever, it's non-grocery. So the best I could estimate, that was about 79% of the sales are actually grocery tax versus all sales. And then I looked at the revenues for our various businesses and, you know, extrapolated a number for you as best I could. Does that explain?
Well, it's helpful, and I appreciate that that you gave us the best information you have. But when I go to the grocery store, I get an itemized receipt that tells me how much tax I'm paying on the groceries that I bought.
Right.
So it does seem to me that that somewhere in this in cyberspace or wherever, there is an accumulation of information, you know, based on individual receipts that people get at the grocery store of how much tax people are actually paying on groceries that they're buying at grocery stores. So that sort of receipt's not available at convenience stores versus major grocery store chains versus Walmart versus Target or whatever. They don't provide that information.
So they don't provide it to us on a local level. So if for example, if I'm just going to use, for example, Kroger, because it's top of mind, when they submit their tax returns, they're submitting, you know, for multiple outlets across the state, and they're submitting grocery tax as well as full 5.3% retail sales tax. And so that is not filtering down to the local level and broken out in those two categories to us, because the information that's available to your locality and to me as your commissioner is information on the 1% that the locality receives out of the 2.5% grocery and out of the 5.3% retail sales. So that's why I don't have exact information on the 2.5, because really what I'm receiving is information on the 1% that we receive.
Okay, so if the new administration proposes to eliminate sales tax on groceries, there is no real objective way that localities like the city of Stanton can determine what the impact on our revenues.
I suspect that probably what we'll end up with is a JLARC study to give us that information at some point in time through the General Assembly.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, any additional questions, comments? Thank you, Mr. Traeger. All right, so that takes us on to the next item, which is item G, a discussion and consideration of approval of opioid settlement claims in a memorandum of understanding to establish the Virginia Opioid Abatement Fund and Settlement Allocation. Mr. Rosenberg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. City Attorney John Blair will present this item.
Welcome, Mr. Blair.
Good evening, Mayor Oakes and council. Just to loop back to the previous item and the question about the communication tax, it jogged my memory. And if you want to look later tonight or later on page 91 of the packet, part of VML's legislative packet this year, their request is to, in fact, level the communications tax with the sales and use tax, and also to allow for taxing of streaming services such as Netflix, Amazon, and the like. Based on the conversation you just had, you might be interested in that. And so I will get now to item G.
Thank you.
Mr. Blair, you said that as if you thought people were interested in that.
Well, you know, Ms. Stoll, I'm sure someone in this broad audience might have a slight interest.
Well, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to remove the magical mystical.
I wish I could, but I don't have those magic words myself. Good evening, and before you tonight, just to give you an explanation, this past summer, well, I really, the MOU was executed this past summer, but this past year, the Attorney General of Virginia has been in litigation with a manufacturer and 3 distributors of opioid products. And as you know, through licit and illicit means, this has created a crisis not only in Virginia, but in our country with this particular substance abuse issue. So based on that litigation, there were settlement talks that occurred. And ultimately, before you tonight, there's a memorandum of understanding that was agreed to by the Attorney General and various private attorneys in Virginia that had bought suits against these 4 entities, both, again, 1 manufacturer and 3 distributors of these products. Before you tonight are 2 documents or 2 resolutions. One is to enter into that memorandum of understanding, and one is to, in fact, settle the claims, any claims the city may have against those 4 entities. So let me explain to you briefly the MOU. There was a global nationwide settlement with these 4 entities for $26 billion. Virginia may receive up to $530 million of those dollars, depending on how many localities agree to this MOU. I did make a phone call today to a city attorney in Roanoke who is on the Virginia Opioid Abatement Authority. There are approximately 95 out of about 100, I believe there are about 140 cities and counties in the state total have signed on to this already. What this will do is the state has created in this settlement the Opioid Abatement Fund. So 15% of these dollars will go to localities themselves. And in your packet, you'll see there's a formula for that money and how much each goes to each locality. Now, don't expect that there's going to just be a check that shows up. There will ultimately be conditions to that check that the funds have to be spent on purposes more than likely related to opioid abatement and mitigation locally. 70% of those dollars are going to go to the Opioid Abatement Authority, which is this statewide entity where Stanton or any other locality can apply if we have special programs for opioid abatement or mitigation and apply for grants. And this authority will, in fact, use that money to fund grants. Its preference is for regional programs. And then the other 15% goes directly to the state. So let me, as your attorney, I always want to advise you. I mean, obviously this sounds like a good thing, but it's also my job to always make sure you know, okay, what are the possible downsides? Well, one downside is you are releasing all claims you have against all 4 of these entities. So you cannot bring any future claims against these entities as the city of Stanton. It's my understanding the council considered bringing a suit a few years ago, but ultimately decided not to. But what the resolution that settles these claims does is it prohibits any suit by the city. The other potential downside is if you receive money, you have to spend it on the purposes that the settlement money goes towards for opioid abatement and mitigation. So, you know, again, you would only have a downside if you didn't spend it on the purposes that the money was in fact intended for through the settlement. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Right, are there any questions? Councilor Holmes?
Yeah, so if we decide not to do this, then any type of litigation, the city would have to pay for.
Correct. If you did not agree to the settlement tonight, you could still have an active claim if you wanted to pursue it, but you would have to hire private counsel to bring such a suit.
And this is Brenda Mead. I have a question.
Councilor Dole's first.
I had 2 questions, just an example of if we approved this and we did receive our 0.441%, whatever, we could use it for like purchasing Narcan. I'm just trying to see things that we could do. We could pay for people to go instead, divert them from jail to a inpatient drug rehab facility and use the funds for that.
It is likely, yes.
Those kinds of things.
Those types of expenditures would be, as long as they relate to opioids.
And then with the big grant, with that 70% where you would apply for things, for example, we could, or I don't know who would be the entity, but because Valley Community Services Board is a regional program already, they could, or we could, the localities could go together and apply for a grant to have them create an opioid treatment center as our own facility.
Yes.
That kind of stuff.
Yes,
Okay.
that's the type of entity I think that in fact the abatement authority would contemplate funding.
Okay, thanks.
Councilor Mead.
Yeah, Carolyn addressed one of the questions that I had. Another question I have is that this deals with 1 manufacturer and 3 distributors. It doesn't prevent us from benefiting from any future suits against the pharmacies, for instance, that distributed these drugs to folks individually in local communities. It wouldn't prohibit us from participating in suits or settlements against those.
It would not. The settlement would only apply to the manufacturer and the 3 distributors. Now, obviously, you bring up pharmacies, but what is likely to occur, if I'm not mistaken, there was a suit, and I just read about this in the Lawyers Weekly. There was a suit in Ohio about that, about a particular pharmacy, I believe, that was being sued. But to answer your question more briefly, no. This only applies to the 3 distributors and 1 manufacturer, and no other claims are being waived with this settlement.
Thank you.
Counselor Holmes?
Would it, I would think it wouldn't be the pharmacies, but maybe doctors that would be able to, you would be able to sue. I don't see how if a doctor prescribed that, how they could take it to the pharmacy. I don't know.
Well, I mean, Terry, this is Brenda. I mean, I don't, Hollywood is Hollywood, but I've recently watched the movie or the series Dope Sick, and local pharmacies watched while people in their communities stood online to get these prescriptions. And the pharmacists, that handed these prescriptions out at local pharmacies knew the devastation that was resulting in their communities. And I don't think you can eliminate those folks from responsibility for the impact that opioids have had in many communities.
You want
No.
Mr. Blair to respond? Okay.
No, I don't know. I would just think that, that it would be a lot harder to prosecute a pharmacy.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not suggesting that we pursue that route. I'm just saying that there are a lot of people responsible for this that won't be involved in any of these settlements.
Anyone else? Okay, so essentially, Mr. Blair, if we were to agree to this, we would also be agreeing not to sue, and we would have to follow the requirements laid out on the funding, because it would need to be related to the opioids.
Correct.
Okay. All right. If there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Oakes,
Councilor Dole.
I move that the Stanton City Council adopt the resolution approving settlements with opioid pharmaceutical supply chain participants, and the resolution approving participation in the Memorandum of Understanding with the Virginia Attorney General as presented.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Councilor Claffey.
I'll second that.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Wallace, please call the roll.
Ms. Darby,
Aye.
Mayor Oakes,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Robertson,
Aye.
Ms. Mead,
Aye.
Mr. Holmes,
Aye.
Mr. Claffey,
Aye.
Ms. Dole,
Aye.
motion carries.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I wanted to ask the council, are you all okay to keep going, or do you need a 5-minute break? Y'all okay to keep rolling?
Let's roll.
All right. That takes us to matters from the city manager. Mr. Rosenberg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have 3 items for council this evening. The first 2 will be brief. Both concern funds coming to the city. I think we've shared with you at the last meeting that the Commonwealth of Virginia has allocated some of its ARPA funds to a tourism recovery program, which will provide funding to every city and county in the state to assist with tourism efforts in the aftermath of the pandemic. We learned earlier in the month that the city will receive an allocation of $60,000, and we'll receive those funds once we prepare and submit a plan to the Virginia Tourism Corporation, all of which is expected to occur during the month of December.
Mr. Rosenberg, this is Brenda Mead.
Yes.
How in the world was the number $60,000 arrived at?
I'm sorry, Ms. Mead, I don't know the answer to that question. I can see what I can learn.
Now, you don't need to pursue it. I just think it's some of what Carolyn refers to as the magical mystery. Yeah.
Yeah, it may be, based on population. It may be based on, lodging tax revenues. Your guess is as good as mine.
Thank you.
The second set of funds coming to the city comes from the city's insurer, the Virginia Risk Sharing Association, or VRSA. And VRSA has many grant programs, and one program that has been implemented recently is what they refer to as an inclusion residency. And Assistant City Manager Leslie Beauregard made the effort to submit an application to this program, which offers resources, training, consulting services, and grant funds to help organizations address diversity, equity, and inclusion. The city received word earlier this week that it would receive an inclusion residency project grant from VRSA. The amount is not presently known. The grant funds will support a budget for the Equity and Diversity Commission once that body is appointed next year, to help them succeed through the first phase of their work and to fund such activities as facilitation, training, community outreach, and marketing, as well as materials that may be necessary in conjunction with those activities. As I said, the amount is unknown, and we'll be meeting with VRSA early next month to discuss the grant further with them. And at that point in time, we'll have some information to share with you about the amount of funding to be received as a part of the city's participation in this program.
Mr. Rosenberg, this is Brenda Mead. So I realize you've said a couple of times that that you don't know how much it is, but I mean, are we talking about $500? Are we talking about $5,000? I mean, any idea?
Yes, Mead, this is Ms. Beauregard. I think this is the first time they have provided this grant for this purpose. And honestly, I can't say, I have no clue. It would be nice, maybe, if it was a couple $1,000s, I would take that. But we'll find out when we have our Zoom meeting with them in a few weeks. And as soon as we find out, we'll certainly be reporting that out. So,
thank you.
Sure.
Finally, I expect that many of the individuals remaining in the audience at this late hour are here to address council about matters related to the Shenandoah Valley Animal Services Center. As some of you know, I'm a pet owner myself. Over 30 years, I've been chosen by 4 cats, including along the way 2 my wife and I adopted from a public shelter elsewhere in Virginia. My current buddy, Leo, brings a big smile to my face and a boost to my mental health many times per day. So I appreciate and understand the passion and commitment I expect to hear from our guests during matters from the public. I am sure many of them are part of the extensive network of volunteers and organizations lending their tremendous assistance and support to the very dedicated staff who care for the animals housed at the Animal Services Center. Before we hear from them and others on other subjects, I'd like to update council and the public concerning the center. As I've reported previously to council, we are exploring, and I stress exploring, a different model for operation of the center. That model would establish a partnership with an outside party as the provider of animal shelter services. As a part of the exploration process, the city of Waynesboro, the center's fiscal agent, has issued what is called a request for proposals, inviting interested parties to share their vision for the center's operation. This RFP, as it's known, was issued on October 19th. It does not specify or require changes in the service level or programs of the center, nor does it provide for a change in the current level of veterinary care provided to animals at the center. Proposals are due in response to the RFP on December 1st. Subsequent to the deadline, an evaluation committee comprising representatives of each of the 3 localities, Stanton, Augusta, and Waynesboro, will review any proposals received and make a determination whether to begin contract negotiations with one of the interested parties deemed most qualified, including only then negotiations about the costs of operations. Those negotiations may also include details concerning performance standards. Ultimately, the decision whether to proceed with such a contract will be made by the executive committee of the center, which includes Tim Fitzgerald, Augusta County Administrator, Mike Hamp, Waynesboro City Manager, and me. So to summarize, at present, there is no contract with an outside party. The center continues to operate as it has with no imminent changes. And at the end of the process, a decision may yet be made to continue with the current operational model. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that takes us to matters from the public. I'm going to read some rules spelled out. You want to take a break? Okay, all right. We are going to take a 5-minute break. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay, we're back from break. Thank you for your patience. The city council has not had a break since 6:20, so some of us needed to use the restroom. All right. Matters from the public. This part of city council's agenda is entitled Matters from the Public. It is a time that council sets aside to hear from citizens and others about a wide variety of subjects. Before we begin, I'd like to share 5 basic ground rules that we ask you to respect as you make your remarks. 1, please come to the podium or begin your call, identify yourself, and complete your remarks within 5 minutes. I will let you know when you've reached your 5 minutes. We ask that you please give your name, your address, and then keep your remarks at 5 minutes or less. When you reach the 5-minute time limit, I will let you know that your time limit has expired. If you continue to speak, I will ask you to step away from the podium or to end your call. If you continue to speak after I inform you that you have exceeded your time limit, I will again ask you to please step away and stop speaking from the podium. If you still continue to speak, I will ask the clerk of council to end your call, and if you continue to speak from the podium, you may be charged with disorderly conduct under Virginia Code Section 18.2-415A2. Number 2, this is a time for us as a council simply to listen to your remarks. In an effort to encourage and maintain orderly conduct, we will not engage in give and take debate. If you are seeking information, you may mention it during your remarks, and the city manager or his staff may get in touch with you in the days ahead. 3, we ask that you direct your comments to council as a whole and not to identify members of council or to identify individual employees of the city. If you want to take up an issue with an individual member of council or an employee, please speak with us before or after the meeting. We are also accessible by phone, mail, or email. Again, we ask that you direct your comments to the council as a whole. 4, we expect every speaker to be civil and courteous, using profanity, making personal attacks on an individual unrelated to the performance of their official duties on behalf of the city of Stanton, and doing anything that is disruptive to the orderly conduct of this meeting will not be tolerated. 5, finally, as the presiding officer, it is my duty to remind you that if you choose not to abide by these ground rules, I may find you out of order and will ask you to withdraw from the podium or to end your call. We certainly do not want to reach that point and even beyond, so we respectfully ask for your full cooperation in observing these guidelines. If you wish, you may obtain a copy of the ground rules from our interim clerk of council. At this point, it's going to be Ms. Robin Wallace for tonight. Afterwards, Ms. Smith, Morgan Smith will be back tomorrow, correct? Okay. And now we welcome all speakers. The podium is now available for matters from the public as well as remote participation using the Zoom platform. We do have monitors that have the clocks that will tell you how much time you have. So please, everyone is welcome. Our first speaker, welcome.
Madam Chair, thank you for this evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity this evening to speak to you and your council members. My name is Danny Link, and I am from Mount Sidney, Virginia. If I may, I would once again like to thank Mr. Rosenberg for his information tonight. It was very enlightening for many of us that it was very enlightening that we didn't know, information we didn't know. And we are, as a group, here to speak tonight about the animal shelter and our concerns, the possibility of it being outsourced to a third-party vendor. As you know, Waynesboro has put out a request for bids for the operation of the Animal Service Center in Lyndhurst. This move took many of us by surprise. We understand the primary reasons for this move is that the localities have trouble retaining staff, which is primarily due to the inadequate compensation offered to the staff members. When you have directors of shelters in Stanton, Rockingham County, and Charlottesville making over twice as much as the director of our shelter, it is not surprising that this is a problem. Same thing holds true for the kennel workers and all the other staff that work there. How do you expect to hire and retain a qualified person who's responsible for supervising 11 employees and managing a $450,000 budget for $36,000 a year? That's a very difficult thing to do. The same is true of the employees who work there. Their salaries are inadequate, and with the climate we live in today, we can easily go to other jobs where their compensation is much higher. After much thought on this matter of privatizing our shelter, I have come to believe that this is not in the best interest of the animals who must depend on the facility and staff to see that they are placed in homes where they will be taken care of. This is based on my 4 years of volunteer work at the SPC in Stanton. After I retired from the Department of Corrections, I started volunteering at the SPCA almost every day. I was there socializing animals, walking dogs, doing whatever needed to be done. And so I'm very aware of the operation of what happened at the SPCA. I was told by Alicia Hammer, who was Amy Hammer's sister, that I was a good used dog salesman. I would work to match up the personality of the dog that I had come to know with the potential person that came in to wanting to adopt, because there is a match. The chemistry has to be there. And I was good at doing that. And I really was good at it. At the time, the SPC had the contract to take on all the animals from these localities, just like the Animal Service Center does today. What I witnessed during my 4 years there was nothing short of a travesty. Nothing short of a travesty of what I witnessed and observed. Thousands upon thousands of animals who either picked up by animal control or surrendered by owners were euthanized, sometimes on the day of arrival. Dozens upon dozens of little litters of little kittens would come in the door and would come in during the spring when kittens are being born. And people would bring them to the SPCA thinking that we would find adequate homes for them. And in some cases, these kittens would be dead before the person that brought them in would get out the parking lot. They would be taken immediately from the front door back to the kill room and euthanized. I saw that. I used to get to the point where if a car came in and if the person got out of the car and came in the shelter, I was relieved because they were there to adopt. But if they got out and went to their back door and got a box out, I said, oh no, here we go. Here they're bringing in a litter of kittens or little puppies or something. I used to dread that, but you can almost tell. In some cases, the kids would be dead before they got out of the parking lot. Anyway, same was true of many dogs. I would work with these dogs during the week, socializing. Dogs would come in traumatized. They would come in from abusive environments where they were beat up and they would be scared. And I would work with them to try to get them so that they were adoptable. I would work diligently with them, trying to socialize them and get them available for adoption. I would leave some Saturday evenings and come back on Monday afternoons. And many of these dogs I'd spent hours working with would be gone. The director would walk through the shelter and pick the dogs and cats she wanted killed without the consideration of the temperament or personality of the animal. She would just make this decision, her selections on the looks of the animal. Absolutely no effort was put into trying to find suitable homes for any of these dogs or cats. There were 3 chest freezers in the kill room.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
Okay, I didn't
Thank
realize they
you.
got it off. Sorry.
Thank you, Danny.
Is there anyone on Zoom with their hand raised?
One with their hand raised.
All right, the next person. Hi, welcome.
Good evening, and I apologize to the rest of the room for, this is a diversion from your topic. Christine Hawley, Stanton Education Association. I just want to remind the council as you enter into the budget season of the importance of funding public education in Stanton. And just to remind the public as well, anybody who's listening, that although there has been money that has come in from the federal government, and it's been very helpful for updating air filters and getting equipment for sanitation, masks, gloves, all of these things have been super important, you know, and we do have the money that's coming in to help, for example, get some more space in the buildings. This is all wonderful and good, but what we really need right now is people. We need people. We need our teachers. We need the salaries to keep our teachers. We need more assistants because we still have not been able to fill the positions of the instructional assistants who were let go in the recession of 2008. And now we've just had a pandemic and we need more than ever. And we are still dealing with some of the results of the recession from over a decade ago. So when the school board comes to you and they ask for money for people, please, please, please listen seriously to what the school board needs and what they're asking for, because we need this. So I thank you for all your support and for listening tonight.
Thank you. All right, anyone? All right. Anyone else in the audience? Hi, welcome.
Hi there. My name is Sherry Ramsey. I'm an attorney licensed here in Virginia and a couple other states. And I've spent the last probably 15 years of my career working specifically on animal related issues. I worked with some big animal welfare groups, the Humane Society of the United States, as an attorney, their counsel, and I have done a lot of drafting of legislation around the states and working with prosecutors, judges, and police officers to make them understand the importance of how to prosecute these cases and why they're important to the link to human violence and that sort of thing. And specifically, I've tried to teach, I teach animal law at New York Law School and wherever they'll listen to me about the importance of animal cruelty, because I think it's such an important issue. And most importantly, I'm from Stanton. I was here tonight because many years ago I was invited to come to the Lyndhurst shelter just as it was opening. And somebody asked me, come by and see it, because they knew I worked in all the animal areas. So I stopped by one day. Then I walked in, it just opened, and I walked around and I tried to smile and I was very polite. And I tried to say, well, you know, good for you, great job. And then as quickly as I possibly could, I raced to my car to get out of that place, because it was one of the saddest, most depressing places I'd ever been to. You could tell that they were overburdened. They had just opened up. They had such few resources. They had all these animals, but nothing really to do to help with them. And it was very sad to me. So, you know, I kind of thought to myself, very sad for these animals that probably aren't going to make it out of here alive, but also probably this is not going to be a very good shelter. It's probably going to end up being one of those shelters that you hear about, you know, in the animal community. Don't take your animals there. Don't go there to adopt an animal. You won't, you know, you'll be depressed for days. But at the time I was traveling around the country a lot, doing a lot of speaking, even speaking to the FBI and Justice Department. I was really busy and I wasn't paying much attention. And then years later, somebody told me about the shelter here. And they said all these amazing things about the euthanasia rate and about how it was such a prosperous, wonderful shelter that was doing such good work. And you could have knocked me over with a feather. And I was really shocked, and I can tell you not much shocks me at this age, but it really shocked me. And in such a good way it shocked me, because I thought, not too many times do you hear these kinds of stories where things turn out so well for a shelter. So I was so happy to hear that. And I just wanted to come here tonight to tell you that I think that's such an important deal. And in some of my work over the years, I was put on the governor's task force to look at some of these issues. And we did a whole long booklet on protocol for shelters and what we thought were some of the best and worst shelters around the country. And one of the things we found in looking through some of this research was a little startling to me, and that was that, and this was back in 2002. So we found that to impound and spay and hold an animal cost between $50 and $90 on average around the country. That was 2002. So think about when you're giving the money that you think might be a good amount of money, that if you're getting high euthanasia rates, that's where that money's going for, to kill the animals. Not to save them, not to socialize them, not to find adoptive homes for them, not to hire extra staff that this shelter needs. It's going to euthanize the animals. So I would urge you, as you decide what you should do, to look at what good work has been done in the last number of years with these hardworking people and volunteers and groups like Cat's Cradle and Augusta Dog Rescue. All of these people that are not getting any money out of this, that are coming and volunteering. Look at these people and think how lucky we are to have these people helping. And I hope that you will embrace the idea of the trap, neuter, return that keeps the animals out of the shelter, that limits the number of animals being reproduced every year. That's a big deal. That saves money, the less animals that are born. So we want to embrace that and look to the groups that are stopping euthanasia, finding homes for the animals, and continuing the great work that not just people in Stanton have told me about, but people in other places have heard about. So I hope that that's what you'll look to. And I thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Right. Anyone else? Hi, welcome.
My name is Jean Fraser, and I'm from Stewart's, Virginia. And I have been a volunteer at Shenandoah Valley Animal Services since 2012. And let's say we have something in our midst that we should really be proud of. I mean, this shelter is something special. And there is a sense of a core mission that has just, every single person on that staff believes that the lives of the animals are really worth saving. And this isn't just a belief. 97% of the animals that come into that shelter come out alive. And I want to contrast that a couple of years ago in Harrisonburg. I have a $9 million building that had an old-fashioned director. 50% of their cats were being euthanized. Over 20% of their dogs were being euthanized. There was a public outcry. I mean, it was huge. And what came up in all these discussions? They were talking about this little shelter in Augusta County with a live release rate of 97%. This little understaffed, inadequately housed, off the beaten track, rural shelter. And it was seen as a shining example of what raw talent, commitment, and dedication to a life-saving mission can accomplish. We're the little shelter that could. And this wasn't accomplished alone. Over the year, this shelter has forged relationships with many transfer partners, local rescue groups, fosters, volunteers, and these people step up in a time of crisis. About a month ago, we had a COVID outbreak. Okay, we're down 4 staff members. They are not able to fill these positions because they're paying $10 an hour when everybody can go to McDonald's and make, $15 an hour. So anyway, half the staff is out. The shelter has to remain open, closed to the public. Animal control kept bringing animals in. We were filled almost to the breaking point. And then something wonderful happened. Because of these relationships, the local rescue groups started showing up and pulling animals out of their shelter. Augusta Dog Adoptions, Cat's Cradle, Dogs Deserve Better, Animal Safe House. They all stepped up. They helped us clear the shelter. Volunteers showed up, worked full shifts, normal shifts. just to keep the shelter going. So that's the sort of community commitment that exists. And we also are a tremendous resource for the community. Whether you need low-cost spay and neuter, we do help with medical expenses. Our 501c3 Friends of the Shelter can help with the medical expenses. We try to keep pets in people's homes by providing food, that sort of thing. So there's definitely community outreach. You have to know if you bring in a stray dog or a cat, or God forbid you have to rehome your own dog, they are going to receive the best care possible. I mean, there is a commitment right there. And I am curious, okay, well, I'm curious about the budget. The proposed 2022 budget is $141,000, more than $141,000 less than this year's budget. I mean, we are talking about trying to retain staff. We still don't have a director. There's $36,144,000 missing from this new budget, which sounds suspiciously like the director's salary. So that's being cut out. I don't understand. I really don't. But anyway, okay, my time is just about up. I just want to say I love the shelter and the people who make it work.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hi, my name is Casey Eldridge, and I have been a volunteer and foster with the shelter for about 1.5 years. And I brought with me as much as I could, some of my babies. Most of these guys either were bottle babies or had health issues to the point where at kind of any other shelter, they probably would have been candidates for euthanasia. And so they're kind of what I think about when this topic comes up. Honestly, when I first read about the operations being bid out to an outside source, I was infuriated. I've cooled off a little bit now as we learned a little bit more about things, how things are going, etc. And I know that hypothetically, this could be an amazing turn of events for the animals, for the people, but all I can think of is how horrible it could be. And it could be the reason that people lose their jobs and that animals lose their lives. I think about the statistics on the Augusta County SPCA's website, where in the last full year that it was operating as our municipal shelter, only 17% of the cats who entered the shelter alive left the same way. 442 cats were adopted or transferred to rescue. 2,150 were killed in 2010 alone. So it's just 1 year. Dogs fared a little bit better at that facility, with 80% leaving the shelter alive. Again, that's 2010. I think about the horror stories I've heard from people who have been in this line of work for years. Any pregnant dog or cat being euthanized, any unweaned puppy or kittens being euthanized just upon intake, having set aside special, 2-3 days a week for euthanasia, and non-existent veterinary care. I think about my fostered bottle babies, kittens with medical issues, kittens whose, because their care was too involved or too costly, would have been euthanized, and we cannot go back to that. The staff have poured their hearts and souls into this shelter, and we have a 97% success rate. Compare that to 17% or even 80%. The staff has built an extensive network of rescues, both local and out of state, as well as a group of dedicated volunteers and fosters, because we couldn't get to that save rate without them. I acknowledge that the shelter staff are completely stressed out and overworked, and there are many issues that we need to address. The shelter, though, should remain a municipal entity and not be handed over to potentially the lowest bidder. Ideally, the management of the shelter would remain with municipal entity. I know Stanton City has been thrown around for that. Obviously, Augusta County is a possibility as well. From Waynesboro, a director would need to be hired, and staff would be paid well in order to attract and retain them. Working at the shelter is a labor of love, and we're lucky that with a starting pay of $10 an hour, part-time, with no benefits, that we can get people to do this job. Especially when KFC is hiring, starting at $14 an hour and working there, you're not going to come in contact with urine, feces, and blood on a daily basis. And you're significantly less likely to get bitten or scratched, although statistically working with the public, that chance is not zero. The staff also needs support from the supervising government body because to serve our community well, we all need to be on the same side. Should there be no alternative to bidding this out, it is imperative that maintaining the 90% or higher save rate is included within the operator's contract, and that the contract be terminated if that is not met, as well as standards for veterinary care, as opposed to an evaluate and euthanize process that we've seen in the past. We cannot go back to a time where healthy, treatable animals are killed because it is easier and less costly than caring for them.
Thank you. So we do have one hand raised.
Hi, this is Mitch Narduzzi, South Jefferson Street. I just wanted to say how happy I am to be back at it after a pretty decent hiatus to take care of my own medical needs. I also want to express how grateful I am for all the community activists that forced City Council to offer this kind of remote participation so that disabled citizens like me can remain engaged in local issues. I want to speak mostly about the city's legislative program that you spoke about earlier tonight in the work session. And thank you for working with Dr. McClanahan at Valley CSB to advocate for funding and support of our community's behavioral health and developmental disability needs. She and Dan Sullivan, the president of the board, as well as a dedicated and hardworking staff over at Valley, are performing daily miracles to make sure that they are accessing as many resources as possible to serve our citizens. I am, however, concerned about the lack of mention of cannabis policy and our city's desire to support a growing industry that will generate a ton of revenue for our state. Right the wrongs of prohibition that use racist laws to disproportionately harm our Black and brown neighbors, end discriminatory practices against citizens in poverty, and increase protections for medical patients like me. I ask that you reach out to Virginia Normal and Virginia Marijuana Justice to educate yourself on the importance of this issue. I can put you in touch with both of their directors, and will do so in an email following. I ask that you at least add to this legislative packet an enactment of sales through existing dispensaries as soon as possible, enactment of licensing for new cannabis businesses as soon as possible, and protection of personal cultivation for patients like me who cannot afford to buy expensive medicine. The longer we wait in this in-between phase, the more we will disadvantage consumers and patients, and the more we will encourage the illicit market. But I want to make sure that you understand, cannabis is not a gateway drug. Studies prove that regulated cannabis markets make for safer communities. Prohibition creates illicit markets. Trauma and abuse are gateways to addiction. Oppression is a gateway to criminality, and the school-to-prison pipeline is a gateway to the continued enslavement of marginalized communities. Which brings me to item A under education. Counselor Mead is absolutely right about the potential for harm that number 6, taking discretionary responsibilities away from school principals in order to mandate law enforcement involvement, could cause. I encourage you to have a lot more discussions with people outside of your political pod before you forge ahead without having the proper discerning wisdom. I was surprised to hear Mayor Oaks say that she hadn't seen any data on how the school-to-prison pipeline leads to disproportionately imprisoning people of color. Did you not speak to members from our local NAACP? What about all the data that leading advocates from communities against the expansion have provided for you? and the mayors and chairs group, whatever came of that, and why, if you were tasked to find solutions to the overcrowding problem at the jail, are we still dealing with population increases and continued veiled discussions about expansion? Surely you all know about Stanton's amazing organization, Building Bridges, who have been hosting a series of community conversations about the true cost of incarceration. I mean, I haven't seen any of you at their events, but maybe you participated remotely and I didn't notice. Actually, correction, I haven't seen 4 of you at any of their events. Anyway, you know their members, reach out to them, and I am directly asking you to attend the next 2 community discussions that they host. They even have one coming up this month, November 29th at 6:30. I'll send you the details. I'm asking you directly to meet with advocates to publicly discuss the issues that we have with our ever-growing criminal justice system. I'm offering my services free of charge to host this meeting for you. All you have to do is show up. I'm directly asking you to reach out to our Blue Ridge Criminal Justice Board, which is uniquely designed to tackle this problem. They can bring together judges, prosecutors, defense attorneys, advocates, justice-involved persons, and other community stakeholders in order to lay out the pieces of this puzzle to influence the changes that will make tangible difference. Our community needs to know that you understand the depth of the harm that your policies and actions may contribute to. We need to know that you understand the data. We need to hear that you grasp the nuances of why adding A6 to the legislative packet would generate deep distrust of your capacity to lead if you cannot demonstrate that you understand how the pursuit of justice for all should work. You can start by following the brilliant suggestion from Councilor Dole to keep personal beliefs
Your
and
time is
politics
up,
out of
caller.
the legislative program
Caller,
and represent
your
all
time
of
is up.
Stanton's citizens
Caller,
by only
your
including
time is up.
unanimously supported.
All right. Next.
Good evening. I'm Raven Loving. I'm from Mount Solon. I'm not like good with numbers or the statistics or anything like that. But one thing I do know a lot about and care a lot about is the animals. I work at SVASC. I've only been there since like June. But my whole life, I've always wanted to work with the animals and help in some way possible. Back in like, I want to say 2013, my cat went missing and disappeared for like 10 months. We didn't know about the shelter at the time, so we didn't think to look. And then one of our neighbors told us that they had taken him there. And luckily, the staff that worked there, I don't know if Tracy worked there at the time, but he hadn't been euthanized, but he was in very bad shape when he got there. And if it weren't for people like Tracy and Aaron, they probably would have been euthanized. But ever since then, I'd always wanted to help out or adopt or foster something from the shelter. And then back in October of last year, I got in contact with Aaron because they were overloaded with dogs as usual. And I adopted my first pet, and he's been the best dog ever. But when I talked to Aaron about applying at the shelter, she told me that I was going to be exhausted, I was going to be drained, that there would be tears 9 times out of 10 every single day. And she was right, but I wouldn't change it for the world because to me, these dogs and cats are my life. And sorry. If there's anything in this bid that can keep the 97% live rate, that would be amazing because that's all that I care about. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any hands raised? All right. Anyone else from the audience? Yeah, welcome.
Hi, my name is Alex Irving. I am a resident of Waynesboro. I'm a volunteer at the shelter. I'm also one of the foster parents at the shelter as well. I've only been a volunteer there since maybe May or so of this year, so it's only a little while. And as a volunteer, I cannot recite to you, the statistics and the previous terrible experiences or anything like that. What I can tell you is about my current experience there, and I hope that means something to you. I did not intend to be a long-term volunteer. When I showed up and Tracy said, who does an amazing job, by the way, Tracy said, we need help. I could not say no to her. And then when I started volunteering there once a week, I want to come back every single week. I want to be there. It's on my schedule. It's the right thing to do because partially what you've heard already so far, and that's the community of the people that work there. Partially because of the good work they do, of course, and it is amazing. And of course you get attached to all the animals as well, but it is really the people, the community that make that possible. So the other thing I want to tell you is in my day job, I'm director of engineering. So I'm a leader, I'm a manager. This is just a joyous thing that I have a wonderful opportunity to participate in thanks to Tracy. She made it possible. I know when I look at the folks in that group that they're nervous, they're scared of uncertainty. And they're good people. As you've already heard, they've done amazing things and they've built an amazing community around them. So I would ask you from my own experience, from my own background, I would ask you, please do not keep them in suspense and instead give them everything that they ask you for. They've achieved this much with just the resources that they have now. Imagine how much more they can do if they have the right kind of resources. I would only urge you for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next.
Who is Tracy? Well, you rock,
Hi.
evidently.
Welcome.
Hello, my name is Caden Dunrack, and I'm a junior in high school. I'm a resident of Stanton City and here to talk about a matter that is clearly not being taken serious. I would like to bring up that you are able to volunteer, foster, and help in many other ways. I myself have done several fundraisers, raising over $2,000 just to help the SBAC a little. I know that it's just a small chunk of change for them because I know they need a lot more. My family takes animals no one else normally will, from seniors to hospice cases. For example, we actually have a cat named General who's 23 years old and still moving like a kitten. Unlike the SPCA, the SBASC wanted to take a chance on this little dude instead of putting him to sleep. I hope you take this subject into serious consideration before following through with your decision. I believe that anyone and everyone who wants to pass judgment on the SBASC needs to volunteer or go one day just to see the daily things that happen. I would also like to say that Tracy, Aaron, along with everyone else who cares enough for these living beings, are a part of the 97% save rate and have put the blood, sweat, and tears into keeping the shelter up and running. This being done currently without having a shelter director says a lot. This is simply amazing and could not really be done with someone who hasn't put their heart and soul into something they truly care about. The save rate must be at 90% or higher, and please do not take the lives or see the lives as a number. Send the Stanton manager the issue for the staffing, salaries, and resources. Hopefully everyone can come to a compromise that will save animals and not just have them considered a dollar sign just to fit a budget. Euthanizing them would be extremely cruel and unnecessary. Please take all the facts into consideration and make the best ethical decision. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Next. Hi.
Hello, good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. My name is Jason Clark. I live at 507 College Circle. My wife Sonia and I have been volunteering and fostering for the shelter for about 10 years or so. Not unlike the Dunbracks, our focus is on small senior special needs and hospice dogs. We've heard a lot of numbers, and not just from our group, but we all got to sit through the budget presentation as well. But what it got me thinking about is how we as citizens, what tools do we have to evaluate the success of an investment of municipal funds? And there are lots of different ways that we can do that. Did the investment make money, or was that its goal? What's the reputation? And what was the result of the investment? But to me, and I think to everybody else in this room, is did the investment fulfill its mission? And you heard Gene talk about mission as well. And so when we as citizens and voters, when it comes time for us to evaluate that question, we're going to look to see whether or not the money that this municipality, along with two others, invested and has continued to invest in this enterprise. Gene mentioned that this is often called the little shelter that could. And I want to change that just a little bit. And I want to say that this is the little shelter that does. Everything that you could have wanted from a shelter when you came up with this idea back in 2010 is done every day, and done beyond what your expectations could have been. And I want to add one extra piece, one extra return on your investment that maybe you don't know about. And that is that the work that is done here extends far into the community like ripples, and not just into the Stanton community. Sonia and I fostered a dog a few years ago that became a little bit of a celebrity in one classroom in Richmond, Virginia, because the teacher was an acquaintance of my wife's on Facebook. And what Sonia would post about Goblin's progress from being in kidney failure, emaciated, unable to stand, to the point now where he is living the life that all of us want, which is he's retired here on a plot of land in Augusta County with his siblings. I'm jealous. But those children learned a lot of things from Goblin's journey: collaboration, the power of community, and the power of compassion. And also that all lives are worthy. That's not something you're going to get from somebody who is giving you your lowest bid. That's not something you're going to get from a third party who is not as invested as these amazing people that you have here with you tonight. So I ask that you remember that everything you could have hoped for, you already have, and you have 10 years of experience delivering it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Welcome.
Sorry about the cow, but your website says, no mask. So. All right, this is my third meeting this week addressing an issue. I'm sorry, I'm Becky Harmon and I live in Swope. I've started each meeting with telling how the first full week in November is National Animal Shelter Appreciation Week, and what a heck of a way to say thanks. I've spoken about being there when the shelter first opened their doors with no washer and dryer, no blind on the bathroom window. I've talked about the hard work and the dedication of the staff and the volunteers. And the shelter has become something that you can be proud of and amazed by. Most of you have no idea how this shelter came into existence, but the main reason was, of course, money. Another push to separate from the SPCA came from an Augusta County supervisor whose wife had taken a stray kitten to the SPCA. Not long after she left there, she had a change of heart. And she turned around and went back to save the kitten and take the kitten home. And the kitten had already been euthanized, no stray hole, just pretty much before she got out of the driveway. In April 16th of 2020, NBC 29 reported every single dog and cat had been adopted at the Augusta SPCA, and they had nothing but empty kennels. On January 15th, WHSV reported the SPC was on hand at the Weir's Cave Airport and received over 30 dogs, mostly puppies, from the Wings of Rescue. Now, first, nothing was mentioned as to how many empty kennels the SPCA had before they cleared their shelter. And for the puppies coming in on the airplane, well, our tiny shelter in Lyndhurst sits practically every day, bursting at the seams. The SPCA has done very little in assisting them in times of need. And the staff can give you the numbers and you would be shocked as to how many times they have gone to that shelter and pulled dogs and cats. But when you can pick and choose what you choose to adopt, well, your numbers are going to look real good on paper, but we all know different. So Waynesboro, it seems, has decided they don't want the responsibility of our open door shelter anymore. The director's salary has already been cut from the budget. So I'm begging you for two things. The first is to stop this bidding process. The SPCA to date is the only bid that's been received and the only organization to take the arranged tour of the facility. And from what I hear, has already met with my camp a few times. There are 20 days left. You do not have to select the only bid you receive. The second is for either you or the Augusta County Board of Supervisors to try your hand at managing this facility. Take it back to the table. Make a long-range plan for a new facility, which over a 10-year period has never even been addressed. It doesn't have to be fancy. It just needs to be functional. And consider with the pandemic, there's a lot of empty buildings in the Saul region that could be used. We've all been suffering staff shortages in our own jobs. Even our local emergency vet clinic has had to shut its doors on occasion from being short-staffed. Involve us, don't ignore us. And in closing, I'm not afraid, I'm not intimidated by any of this situation. Because if I can give a cat an enema twice, you're not going to scare us away. Not going to happen. And we're not threatening you with an animal. That didn't come out right. But we can be with you. We can be beside you through this process. But you just listen to our pleas and reach out to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Hi, welcome.
Yeah. I can speak with this mask. Okay, so good evening. My name is Amy Hammer. I live in Highland County, but I used to live in the city of Stanton. I'm the co-founder and current president of Augusta Dog Adoptions, and I'm a volunteer cat foster for the shelter. And I'm here tonight to speak in opposition of the bid that's been given out by the city of Waynesboro for a third party to run our animal shelter. I worked as an animal control officer for the city of Stanton for 2007 to 2012. I recognize a couple of you, but most of you are new. In 2011, after several price increases that were set by the SPCA, localities, that's you, Augusta County and Waynesboro, decided to open your own shelter in an effort to save money. Though the SPCA was euthanizing about a quarter of the dogs and 3/4 of the cats they took in, that was not part of your decision. It was truly based on money. You opened SBASC quickly and in the only location you could buy that was already built. Animal control officers ran the shelter when it opened until a director could be hired, and I was one of them. At first, we were told that we couldn't even adopt animals out. I was told that I had to get them into rescues or that I could euthanize them. On the day that we opened, there were no cat cages in the building. They didn't come to almost a week later. And I ended up driving a load of cats to the vet, and I held them all while they were euthanized. And that's what we did for you, for the localities, until everything could get situated. But things got so much better. In all honesty, I am in shock by how far SBASC has come and how much you have accomplished. Despite being built just to save money, you have a save rate that is one of the best in the whole entire state. Shelter staff have done an amazing job given what they have to work with. The biggest problem is you just can't keep a director because the pay does not compensate someone for a position that is so mentally, emotionally, and physically exhausting. And I really think that's why Waynesboro is frustrated, and that's why they're ready to throw in the towel. My camp has had to deal with this since 2010, and I know he's frustrated. If someone puts in a bid to run the shelter, it could go two ways. It's an open bid. We can't be sure how it would go. It could be ran by someone who does a better job, or it could go the other way. And let's be honest, you know, it could be given to someone who doesn't care how many animals walk out the front door alive or go out the back door in garbage bags. You could contract with someone who euthanizes everyone as soon as their stray hold is up, because that's all the law really requires. and only minimal vet care. Like the animals at SVASC get so much more vet care than what's required by law, because there's so many donors putting money in that they're able to get, dentals, broken legs fixed, all kinds of things. They go above and beyond. How am I doing on time? Okay. So anyways, I just want to ask you that you all continue to run SVASC, and do that by hiring a new director who is highly qualified and will be attracted by a competitive salary, and hire enough staff to make the workload manageable. We ask the city of Stanton to be the fiscal agent if Waynesboro just needs a break. And if nothing else, if you can do absolutely nothing more, please require that whoever takes this bid, that there is an expectation of at least a 90% save rate. We have worked for the last decade to make Thrive a shelter that you wanted because it would save you money. We gave our lives to it, and now we feel like you all are the ones that want to bail. I'm heartbroken and I'm very angry, and I'm asking you to please save our shelter. We just want to keep saving the lives of homeless animals. Thank you. And
Thank you. Hi, welcome.
I'm Renee Clark. I'm with Cat's Cradle. I am a volunteer and I'm on the board of directors. We infuse a lot of private donation money into the local communities for spay-neuter assistance, medical assistance, whatever is needed to keep the pets in the home, which indirectly saves the localities money because those animals are not taken into the shelter or the pound, and that saves taxpayers dollars. All that is done, like I said, through private donations, through no cost to taxpayers. Why I mention that is because we're a partner with you guys and we're here for you, and we want to be part of the problem solving. Everyone in this room does. The reason I mention that is because we initially looked into this RFP. We thought, well, what is the problem that they're trying to fix? Maybe we can give some ideas to figure out what the problem is. So looking at that, from what I've heard, the main problem is staff turnover. They're having difficulty with staff turnover. So they have a staff of approximately 12 normally, I believe, might be 11 or 12. And right now they currently have 4 vacancies. Of those 4 vacancies, none of them are currently advertised. So if anyone in the room currently wanted to apply to be the executive director or even a cleaner, they could not. Those jobs are not on the street. The reason being, I think they were put on hold with the RFP, but also I think because they were having issues filling the positions. When we went to the first meeting on Wednesday with Waynesboro, we found out that their entry-level fire person or rescue person who came in with no training is hired in about $36,000 a year. So also, just so you know, this position for the executive director, who is typically in charge of 11 people, their salary is $36,000 a year. So I believe that if we're trying to problem solve, that's a huge discrepancy for someone who has all the responsibility that that executive position has and all the responsibility of this personnel to be making $36,000 a year. So for staff retention, I think that should be the first thing that's addressed. Also, most of the kennel people are making $10 an hour, which again, another problem. But from what we've seen in other communities where they have life-saving changes for animals and are leaders, is the biggest difference is made by the executive director. You got to competitively get that job out there. Like I said, we're here to help. Many of us even have experience doing hiring through our real jobs. Get the word out, get someone who really is going to be a leader and can come here and advocate for the animals and advise you, of what the issues really are. So I would love to see that. With that said, we would like for the responsibility to stay with the localities. That Cat's Cradle is officially taking a position on that. We do not want it to go private. If that is just a deal breaker and you guys decide you have to go private and you can't just fix these small things that we think could be easily addressable, then have a condition in the contract where We're all saying at least a 90% save rate. I would argue you guys have got a 97% right now. Why would you go backwards? So with that said, I also want to make sure I congratulate you. Your budget, and for the past 10 years, you are leaders in the state of Virginia. You're recognized in the state of Virginia for animal welfare. Congratulations. Now here's the real big news. You're recognized nationally. So why would we want to go backwards and have people see us do that? Like I said, Harrisonburg, when they got a new executive director, again, you were used as an example of what can be done. So we're here. There's other ways to have cost savings. If you need cost savings, the biggest way is to keep intake down. I don't know if you know this either, since in the 10 years, you've reduced your intake by a third. It used to be approximately about 3,000 animals. Now you're a little over 1,000. So come to us. We have ideas on how to reduce intake. Keep those feral cats out of the shelter. Don't have animal control bring them in there when they're already spayed and neutered. It saves you money. So again, congratulations. We're here for you. We need you to be here for us. We'd love to partner with you for solutions, but congratulations on that great save rate. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, this is the first time I've ever spoken at anything like this. First, I would like to say that was a great job explaining that at the beginning, Mr. Rosenberg. The way you explained it just kind of opened it, and it made a lot of people go, okay, there's a chance. Because the biggest thing is they're just afraid for the animals. Like going backwards, like Renee said, going backwards is just not the way to go. And I don't have a prepared speech or anything, so I'm just winging it here. But like these shelter staff, they care a lot. And for them to do that with the pay that they're getting is just amazing. I'm a TNR coordinator for Cat's Cradle. So I catch feral cats and get them fixed and vaccinated and everything. And that's kind of a big part of it too, is keeping them out of the shelter. You keep them out, you keep the costs down, because then, euthanizing them costs money, and them being in there is just taking up space. What else have I got? Like I said, I didn't have anything prepared. I just came up here winging. But yeah, I think that it'd be good to keep the shelter open. Man, I had something else. I had it prepared. In my head. I would just end here with thank you more than anything for explaining it. Because that, like, the way you explained it just kind of made me go, okay, good. Because there's going to be negotiations, there's going to be talks about it. It's not like it's just going to be like, oh, they were the only bidder. Okay, well, so that is amazing news right there. That's the biggest fear, is it going backwards, going back to where it was. So thank you.
Can I get your name and where you're from?
Justin and Stanton. I live here, Buick Street, actually.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justin.
No problem.
Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Ashley. I'm from Stanton. I know some of you your kids went to preschool with mine. Thank you for allowing me this time to speak. I've been a member of this community for 18 years, and I moved here from the DC area. So a small, sweet town like this seemed like the dramatic shift I needed. I come from a family of animal lovers who have fostered dogs and transported animals and worked with various organizations. Part of what drew us here was the town's reaction to what happened to the beloved town dog Mosby, who I'm sure most of you remember. We saw a town devastated by the loss of a beloved mascot, and the fact that the town pressed charges over what some would just consider just a dog led us to believe that this was a place that loved their pets. I currently have 3 dogs and 4 cats, some of who adopted me. Only to move here and find out that our new local shelter was a killing ground. My activist mother set out to try to stop the atrocities. that we had heard occurred behind these doors. She went so far as to contact the Washington Post after speaking to former employees about the horrors and traumas that they experienced, the killing rooms that they've talked about, but nobody else wanted to talk about it, almost like they were afraid to. Then finally, the Augusta Regional lost the contract, and as Amy has told you, initially it wasn't a better option. But those hardworking individuals that I personally worked with as in my former role as shelter manager of the Augusta Regional SPCA. A job I took believing that they were a different organization than they used to be, and had that these people have turned SVAC into something incredible. And it took many years of literally blood, sweat, tears, vomit, feces, you name it, they've seen it. I got lucky. I worked at a no-kill shelter, so I didn't have to do what they did. I could not do what these people have done. And I wish I could do what they've done, because they've done so many incredible things. And as many have mentioned, it's been a nightmare to fill the director's position because of their salary. And I can tell you as a former shelter manager, that salary is not nearly enough for all that life brings. I'm not here as a disgruntled former employee. I'm here as a very concerned citizen about my pets, about my neighbors' pets, and about pets that have yet to find their place. I'm here to tell you that I know firsthand that the Augusta Regional SPCA has and has never had any interest in a high save rate. It is about the bottom line, and that's not how you base the value of a life, human or otherwise. During their last quarter, the Stanton Augusta shelter, or Augusta Regional, just between the months of January and March of 2007, 80% of the cats taken in were euthanized. That's 1,619 cats and kittens in 3 months, and 30% of dogs at 400 dogs. Just from this small snippet of time, it's astounding and unacceptable. It means that likely if the numbers were consistent, then they killed close to 7,000 cats and close to 2,000 dogs a year. These could have been any of our pets that overstayed their hold. If Stanton City or Augusta County cannot commit to taking fiscal control of the locality, we demand that it is stated in the contract that they maintain a save rate of 90% as higher as the nationally acclaimed SVAC has done, and what I think is somewhere currently between 96 and 97% currently. That's incredible. They deserve so much respect and recognition for everything they've done, from fostering and networking to save this many lives. We demand no decrease in medical care for the animals. And that the staff, as I am very familiar with, has given their heart and soul and every waking minute to that shelter, are kept on to continue their fantastic work. Compassion fatigue is a real thing, especially in the shelter world. The things you see, the horrifying things that people do to animals, the lives you touch, the lives you lose, it drains your souls. But these amazing people have pushed through and kept saving lives. We cannot go back to the way it was before. Allow our homeless pets to find their place and allow the staff to continue helping them find their way home. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. Hi, welcome.
Good evening. My name is Rachel Westfall. I live in Waynesboro. I have been fostering in one capacity or another for Shenandoah Valley Animal Services Center since 2015. I now primarily foster for Cat's Cradle, and I'll tell you why. It's not that I don't support my shelter. It's because if I foster for Cat's Cradle, I can get those cats out of Shenandoah Valley Animal Services Center. I can do more. I'm getting them off the books. I'm helping them have resources for other pets. What these people have accomplished is beyond amazing. The scope of what they can do as far as services they provide to the community is something that you would expect out of an organization in the DC area. It is amazing. They also have brought affordable spay-neuter. The SPCA clinic has been around. They do great work. It's a wonderful low cost, but it's not enough. I mean, there is a huge need for spay-neuter options. They have partnered with Angels of Assisi out of Roanoke, and now 2 times a month, There is a transport that comes from Angels of Assisi, picks up at the shelter, takes them down, they're spayed and neutered, and brought back that evening. This is not just a cost-effective way for the shelter to ensure that they're getting their animals spayed and neutered so they can be adopted out. This is a service available to the public. They work so hard to help keep pets from coming. You heard about how the intake has been lowered. They do courtesy posts to help when a pet absolutely has to be rehomed. Let's do that directly. We can help you. We can be that resource, but it's saving money. They're not coming to the shelter. They have been able to partner. There's a nonprofit, as I'm sure you've heard mentioned tonight. The community and resources that have been brought together in support of this amazing organization, it's unbelievable. We save the city money or the county money or the organization money because this is what we care about. We want to make this happen. The shelter is important to us, the community. You've heard numbers all night. I don't need to continue to repreach those. You've heard them. You can probably repeat them. You'll probably be dreaming about them. I hope you will. There is a legacy that has been created over the last 10 years, something that I am extremely proud of, something that feel so fortunate to be a part of. I had a conversation with someone when I was on a work trip in the Midwest. This was an animal control officer. Unfortunately, I had reason to call animal control on my work trip. You could tell how jealous he was that I lived in Virginia, where there were all of these forward-thinking approaches and programs. Renee is right with what she says. I mean, we are looked to what we can do, what Jean said. If someone like Harrisonburg, where there was all of this, if they're looking to our shelter, they're doing something beyond right. We can't go backwards. We have to go forwards. There are many ways to do it. No one is saying that a bid is going to be the be all end all. But what we need to know as far as the animals being safe, for these amazing people to have their jobs, it's not in writing. And if it's not in writing, I'm sorry, but you can talk all you want. It's just talk. And I don't want to say I'm disbelieving anyone. That is not all it. And I thank you. You have all looked so engaged this evening. And I thank you for that because you've probably been hearing it all week in some form or another. We can't go back. And please just remember how important this shelter is to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
I'm just gonna,
I
know I'm gonna leave y'all with some cuteness. This is Noah and Tracy was our matchmaker. And you notice that that is not a picture of my husband on my home screen. That is a picture of my cat. And so I just wanted to leave you all with that before you close the meeting tonight. Thanks.
Thanks, May. Thank you. All right. Certainly.
Hi, my name is Paula and I live in Starstraft, and I wasn't planning on saying anything this evening, but I have to tell you that everything that these folks have told you is absolutely true. And my first experience with the shelter was just a few months ago. I went around the middle of August to adopt a dog, and I was so impressed with the people and the care the animals got, how clean the place was. It was amazing, and everybody worked so well together. And I inquired about volunteering, and so I became a volunteer. And I haven't worked for about 15 years, but I actually took a part-time job at this shelter because I loved it so much, and it was awesome, and I love being a part of it. And everybody there puts their heart in everything, and it should stay and be the perfect place for the animals that need homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Certainly. Hi, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Linda Farah. I live in Fort Defiance. I'm a community psychiatric nurse at Harrisonburg-Rockingham Community Services Board, but I have lived within the boundaries of Augusta County all my life. I started volunteering at SVASC about 5 years ago, and my favorite thing to do there is to walk dogs and socialize dogs. But I have done all sorts of things, including participating in adoption events when invited by area businesses. They appreciate the work of SVASC and want to be part of saving animals. I would like to mention one series of connections that SVASC has made over the last several years. A nonprofit, Friends of Shenandoah Valley Animal Services Center, was created by volunteers solely for the purpose of addressing medical issues of the animals at the shelter that they couldn't afford to treat. So far, they've spent about $70,000 on medical care for the animals. Purely nonprofit, on donations alone, no cost to the taxpayers. This nonprofit, Friends of Shenandoah Valley Animal Services Center, sends the animals to area vets for care, like Dr. Reeder at Animal Hospital of Waynesboro, who's my vet, my dog's vet rather. And they've partnered up with Angels of Assisi, who does low cost spay and neuter for the shelter and the community at large. Several weeks ago, they met at North Park in Waynesboro, and they treated the first 50 vehicles that came, however many pets were in the vehicle. There were 70 animals treated that day for various things, including vaccines, sick calls, flea and tick medicines, just whatever was needed. Friends of Shenandoah Valley Animal Services Center gave out pet food to whoever showed up, even if they weren't treated. Toys, leashes, harnesses, things like that. People in this community love their pets and want to provide them with good quality vet care, and Shenandoah Valley Animal Services Center is a part of that. I am grateful to volunteer there and pray you give decisions about SVASC a lot of thought. Despite being short-staffed and underpaid, they have maintained passing inspections, a high save rate of 96 to 97%, and do that while networking with area rescue organizations and running a robust volunteer and adoption program. The shelter has a food pantry for people in the community who are struggling to maintain their pets in their home and give them pet food when needed. In this way, the animals stay in their homes and out of the shelter. The shelter is proactive in the community. Please help SVASC. It's such an asset to the community, to the people and the animals of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, well, thank you very much for coming out tonight and letting your voice be heard. Please know that we have been listening and we have heard you. All right, with that, I will now close out the Stanton City Council regular meeting for November 11th, 2021.
Thanks.